Well, welcome back to the think tank. And here we are today with a guest, a wonderful guest, a friend of mine named Stephanie DeLeonardis, a friend of mine. We've known each other for a couple of years. And actually, yeah, I was kind of trying to think like when we first met. I want to say it was probably at like an art market or something, like one of those pop shops or something like that at Silver Street.
Yes.
And then I meet a lot of creators at those kind of things though, and there's a strange diversity of people in the art community. I mean, we're just as diverse as any other community. So you never know what you're going to get with these kind of people. But Stephanie kind of stood out at one point, really, because for me, it was during the COVID thing.
Mm.
And sorry, I want to turn on this light here. Actually, I guess my lighting's good. Anyways, yeah, so the COVID thing happened in 2020, and I made this big dodecahedron, and I decided once the lockdown happened, hey, this would be a cool opportunity to get inside and invite people to come out and just get some fresh air, get some sunlight, some vitamin D, some healing, some natural healing,
Mhm.
and give them a reason to get out and still kind of interact with each other. And it went pretty well. I did probably like maybe a dozen. I don't know. I did at least like several over the months, but you attended one or two of them, and I remember like you came out. Yeah, I think maybe that was the first one you came out to. And there was even like a photographer there, and so there was like some photos of us kind of interacting.
Yes.
And there was a moment, that I just found like it made me think, oh, this person's interesting because for one, you came, so that was cool. But also that I was trying to engage the audience and get people to like, interact. And most people were too afraid.
Yeah.
And then you actually were brave enough. I offered you, I think, a pretzel or
Yeah.
something. And you were actually brave enough to like reach over there and grab the pretzel from my hand in the middle of this, whole pandemic scare thing. And I was kind of thinking about it while I was doing it. I was like, wait a minute, should I even be doing this? Well, she's going for it, so it's all good. So luckily I wasn't too afraid. You weren't too afraid. I was worried that I was going to get like some weird call later that you got sick, but that didn't happen. So that was good. Anyways, that's kind of my introduction to you. And then, I started looking at your page a little more after that because again, I was like, wow, that was really cool of Stephanie to come out and play.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing some of your posts, and I was like, wow, this person's actually pretty interesting. She's into a lot of the stuff that I'm into as far as metaphysics and
Mm.
things like that. And so I was like, this would be a really cool person to kind of just learn more about and share that with the world. So that's why you're here. That's why I thought it would be a good idea. But well, so one of the things that I saw when I looked at your profile and that really stood out to me was as a person who's been ingesting tons of this kind of information over the years on the internet,
Mhm.
I certainly came across Dr. Joe Dispenza. And
Yes.
then I saw this photo of you like next or him next to you. Y'all are like on the beach, and like I think one of y'all's meditating. I think you're meditating and he's looking at you with this weird look. And, and I was just like, oh, holy crap. So can you maybe just tell us a little bit about that? I'm very curious about that experience. Like, what was that?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your intro and thank you for your service as an artist. I think that it's so important. And I feel that during the COVID time was a prime time for us to really begin to see that to tap into the gifts that we have, to really cultivate and nurture self-expression. And so I found that your courage to be out and about in this place of being playful, and also yet inviting, this intense process that we all went through in the process of isolation, to bring that into a light of beauty through your expression, through your artistic expression. So just really honor you for that. And so that's what drew me to support you in your expression. So thank you for that. And yeah,
Thank you.
and indeed, Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe has been a catalyst in my healing, in my process of awakening. And so I I had a chiropractor that was treating me for a neck injury, and she had been studying with Dr. Joe for some years. And I was in a place in my life where I felt bored. I felt like there's more to life than just the mundane aspects of just going to work, and even my craft as an artist, and creating jewelry. I felt that there was a stale energy, and I just felt like I was in this cycle, this loop of predictability. And my soul, my spirit was asking, like, there's got to be more to life than just getting up and going to a job and coming home and just this routine. And so when I started asking the questions, then the universe started placing people in my path that began to kind of open this level of perception, to begin to shed some light in these areas that were calling me to the vastness of life, beyond what the physical eyes and what our five senses can tune into. So
Right.
she started sharing with me information that she had been learning at these workshops with Dr. Joe, and it really was resonating with me. So in February of 2016, I went to my first workshop in Austin. Joe was doing a progressive, it's kind of like a beginner workshop to learn kind of the basics of meditation.
Okay.
And what I learned there was the first time really in my life that I had been invited to look at being a creator, the creator of my reality. Through thoughts, through emotions, through the things that we speak. And so I had my first meditation there. And it was the key to unlock myself into freedom. And so I bought a couple of CDs. We were still doing CD meditations at that point. And I started practicing, breath work. I began having profound mystical experiences that I didn't understand what was really happening to my body, activating Kundalini energy. And so I just knew that the work that Dr. Joe teaches was the foundation, was the outline, a blueprint to live for life. And
had you heard of him before this? Like, had you seen him on the internet or anything?
so I had heard of What the Bleep Do We Know? I had kind of like watched some of that, and
Oh, yeah, I still haven't seen that, but I know that he's in it and I've been told to watch it.
yeah, it's so good. And I actually used to have the DVD in my laptop, and so I would watch it all the time before I went to bed. And so I just started like programming, just like feeding my mind over and over again with lectures, with YouTube videos, with that movie, to really begin to understand at a soul level, to embody the information, to see it in direct correlation in my life, to see how I had created the traumatic events in a sense, like my spirit aligned to them, and then how to unravel those beliefs and to create new beliefs, to create a new state of being through the work that he offers and that he teaches. So that that photo that you saw of me and Dr. Joe at the beach was that was a pivotal moment in my life and my journey
I'll bet.
Yeah, I had
That picture is like charged with energy. Like you can see something's going on there.
Yeah, I had experienced a pretty severe trauma on this spiritual path, and I really just was suffering from deep depression, anxiety, fears, and trying to work through this this spiritual, physical, psychosomatic trauma that I had experienced. And so in this process, there was an event that popped up for a student of Dr. Joe, and it was an advanced follow-up, meaning it's a shorter, condensed, less lecture, more meditation. And my spirit just knew that I needed to be at that event. And so So I went and I had submitted my case for a healing. So when in our community, there's people that come from all over the world to heal from different illnesses, from different diseases, pains, traumas. But because we have such a large community, not everyone can. We can't, do physical heal, or they're spiritual healings, but we're we're present physically for them. So in
Right.
order to receive a healing, one must submit their story. Dr. Joe has a team of people that review these cases, and then people are selected to receive a healing. So in this journey, in this workshop, this was a night workshop. Actually, the theme was dream time. So we would begin meditating at 10 p.m. and we would go through like 6 o'clock in the morning. And the
Wow.
process that Joe would do with us was we would pull the breath. So we would take the breath. He teaches us this breath to activate our pineal gland, which is responsible for the production of dimethyltryptamine, serotonin, melatonin. But when we learn how to activate this, people have profound mystical experiences, transcendental experiences through breath alone, no exogenous substance. And then we would bless the energy center. So the chakras, we would bless each energy center. And then we'd lay down for a sleep cycle and then get back up, breathe, bless the energy centers, then back down again. So the process of, it almost gets your brain into this kind of confused state. You don't know what time it is. You're
Mhm.
activating all this energy. And so it's a prime time for a mystical experience to occur. And so in this process of doing this work, I had, when we laid down for a moment, I was seeing visions, but I couldn't really make out what they were. I was being shown landscapes or GPS, like tracking points, and it was kind of confusing. And so I got a little bit irritated and annoyed, and I was fatigued. I'd been up for a couple of days. There was just so much excitement and energy in the community. So anyway, I told myself, okay, the next time he lays us down, I'm just going to roll over on my side. I generally fall asleep on my side,
Mhm.
some rest. So I lay over on my side and I go into a dream. And in the dream, there was a person that had like tapestries or towels or clothing, like a bundle of material, and they were asking me to go do something with them. And I think my people pleasing usually would just say, okay, yeah, let me go do this. But in the dream, I
Mhm.
was super coherent. And I told the person, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do more of what I want to do. And it was this empowering moment where it was like my subconscious, my conscious mind, my spirit, like everything started to come alive. Like it was this moment of unity, of wholeness, of awakening. And I start waking up from the dream. And as I'm waking up from the dream, my heart is beating super fast. And I can feel Dr. Joe at the foot of where of my mat. I can just
Mhm.
sense his energy there.
Right.
I have this thought that says, oh my God, I'm dying. And then the second thought came in, it says, you're healing, surrender. And so I just relaxed, and it was like this lightning bolt surge of energy went like into my heart. And the energy was electric and it was hot, and it started to move from my heart center down into my third, into my second center. And it was moving up into my throat center and expanding around. And in that moment, I was almost paralyzed. And I remembered, Joe, all the information, like, because I'd been studying this information for, at that point, about 2.5 years.
Uh-huh.
It all came through in this one moment. And I remember Joe telling us that when this frequency hits you, it has a message for you, because all frequency carries information. And the message that it gave, that the divine, that this spirit of God, of love had for me was, you're worthy of being loved. You're worthy of having the things that you want. You're worthy. And I just wept. I just cried and cried and cried, saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. I could barely move. And so after that experience, I felt I got way more than what I invested in, like paid for this, like cherry on top. And so it was really a fascinating and beautiful event, because I met people that there's a soul, a pattern recognition. I knew, and this has happened more and feels like it's happening more, of this communion, this merging, this connection to spirits, to these souls, these beings that I remember. And I haven't met them in this timeline, but I know that we know each other. And so
Wow.
it was incredibly profound and so deep. So I was in such a process of really like stepping into my power. There was so many memories of things that I had experienced on my journey with the plants and on the shamanic path, that all basically came to confirm that it was all real, that was the event and that was the moment, and that retreat that I accepted, that I was shown without an exogenous substance, uh,
Mm.
because I work with plant and animal medicine, that everything that I went through in my life, all of the suffering, all of the pains, all of the traumas was my curriculum. It was my initiation to do this work that I do today. And so it was
Hmm.
such a pivotal, profound journey for me to remember my gifts as a healer. And so, yeah, just so powerful. And so,
That's amazing.
yeah, and the work, that the outline to living that Joe has offered, humanity is something that I continue. It's become a working part of my being. It's become
I
the new.
can totally understand why. Yeah. Just
Yeah,
because some of the like I've watched tons of his stuff online, and I've tried to consume as much as I can.
yeah,
And I mean, again, I've watched and read from so many of these kind of people, and he just really stands out to me a lot, like probably one of the most influential to me as far as this whole space.
sure.
Um, and for me, it may be different for you, but the part of it that really made him convincing and interesting to me was how much science he went into.
Yeah,
Like, and he talks about that a lot in a lot of his videos, where he's like actually gotten um, doctors to come and take all these kinds of tests, and they've actually been able to measure that before like a session like that
yeah,
you're describing, how their heart rate is and heart coherence is, and then how it is afterwards. And like it's basically like statistically true that after doing meditation and all this kind of stuff, that your brain heart coherence, it becomes more aligned, like the frequencies are more aligned. I'm not really sure how they measure that, but I'm sure they have a way. And
yes,
he's used that as a tool to really actually measure his results, which
exactly.
I think that's important to me, because it's just it's easy to like say like, oh yeah, I've done this or that, and I've healed these people, whatever, and it's like, okay, we'll take your word for it, you sound smart. But to actually have some concrete results, I think is important in this day and age, at least for people like me who are very science driven, very left brain logic. Like I'm super, I want to be super spiritual, okay, we'll put it that way, and I do my best, but then there's always this nagging left brain of mine who's like, it's weird because sometimes I don't, it's just like it's a blessing and a curse, because it's like I feel like the left brain almost is like that naysayer all
Mm,
the time too, because it's always being logical, right? And so it's always like, you can't do that. You're
right,
like, that's not gonna work.
right.
Oh, look at you being all silly trying, man, come on, how many times have you tried this? It's not gonna work. I
Yeah,
get I get thoughts like that all the time. Oh my God. It's like, it's so hard. Like, I don't know. I just don't understand why me, even for instance, been on this journey for a while, been meditating. I definitely could be more consistent, I guess, with my meditation. I think maybe that's probably the main problem. But man, do I get like bombarded by like just self-defeating thoughts like
mhm,
on the daily. And yeah, it's so annoying. And it's like I'm constantly trying to reprogram. And I can definitely tell, like, when I put in the days, or like when there's been like a series of days where I have meditated more, or if I've just been better about managing my emotions and just kind of watching over what my mind is doing and not letting it kind of just run amok on its own.
mm.
These kind of things definitely work for me, but I need to work harder on it, I think. Maybe I need a retreat to some of these things that you're doing. Um, but yeah, so I just find that very interesting, that there's actually some data that proves what he's doing is correct, that it's actually creating change, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that it's a beautiful way, and what he shares is that, even using the term spirituality can divide an audience, but science is kind of universal language where people, can come together with that. And so this it's just, I feel that he's so brilliant in his expression and his, in his own journey of what catapulted him into doing this work. I mean, he healed himself, and he made a deal that he would spend his life, studying the brain and body connection, and studied neuroscience in order to begin to have the language to explain these mystical experiences, or what some would say is a miracle, which is just fascinating. So yeah.
Yeah. So, it's like, you could almost say like, well, maybe that's all in your head, but at the same time, it's like, well, even if it is all in my head, if it's creating like growth and allowing me to live a better life, and, yeah, relieving myself of all this pain, well, then so be it, but I do think there is something, I mean, I think there's more to it than that. But even if it was just like, a psychological, like a dream, something that's just kind of happening internally, we do need to manage those things, because those things are happening, and whether they're manifested and real or whatever,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
like, it's real enough, it's inside you, right?
Yeah.
Like it's all about like the placebo effect. I'm constantly reminding myself of the placebo effect, because that was something that I remember learning about when I was a kid, that like gave me this strong like sense, or like affirmation,
Mhm.
that there is this whole mind over matter thing, you
Mhm.
know, and you really can't say it's not true, because there's placebo tests done on every piece of medical what do you call, like pills or whatever, things that are meant to change you, right?
Mhm.
They always have to do them with a blind placebo test, and see how that works in relation to it. So that just goes to show how powerful the placebo effect is. It's part of our medical like vetting,
Yeah.
right? So when you come out with a new pill, they want to see how it stands up to that. And it's pretty amazing that that people, yeah, can think they're taking a pill and heal themselves. You can also think you're taking something really bad and kill yourself. There was a story about a man who convinced himself that he was in a freezing prison cell, and then even though it wasn't, but I guess it was slightly chilly in there. And he convinced himself that it was so cold that he was going to die. And he was screaming like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. If I don't get out of here, I'm going to die. Well, he died, but the next day, but like, he was in like a room temperature cell,
Wow.
so he psyched himself out and killed himself,
Yes.
and people do these kind of things. And you also psych yourself out and, evade death,
Yes.
like with, yeah, so adrenaline and stuff. So yeah, there's scientific reasons. There's chemicals that your brain releases that cause all kinds of results.
Mhm.
But the thing that I've seen him focusing on so much is that, yeah, that you can actually tell your mind to release those chemicals. You can actually choose and be like, all right, well, now's the time. I want some serotonin, right? Or I want to feel good, right? So I'm gonna make myself feel good. And yeah, that's just amazing. And I think more people need to be exposed to to those ideas and put them into practice. Again, I certainly need to work on it as myself, but um, yeah, it's just amazing. So that was your meeting with Dr. Joe Dispenza, though, right? It was kind of like a retreat on that one occasion, right?
Yeah, so I attend about one a year. I
Mhm.
one time a year I'll connect, and we just have such a beautiful, I mean, the people, the community. It's, when you have people that align to connecting to the heart, which I believe the frequency that people term God is love. And so when you have thousands of people opening their hearts with their intention to heal another, or to create these beautiful things in their lives, it's intoxicating in the most beautiful way. And so, I mean, I feel that community is family. And so I get excited to connect with the people, to share my energy, to receive, and to make these lifelong connections. I mean, just, it's incredible. So I haven't been this year. I spent some time studying in the jungle with one of my teachers, and so I'll attend one next year. But yeah, so once a year since 2016, I've averaged one.
Wow. Let me know when you do. I mean, if I can, I'll try to make it out, because that does seem like a life-changing event. I feel like if I were to go through that, like, man, I feel like I would have some amazing revelations. And you're right about people getting together too, because it goes back to that whole like vibration, the vibratory nature of everything, of all matter. And the fact that when you're all getting together and you're all kind of joining in unison, it's like you're amplifying each other, right? So you're like amplifying that high vibration, and you're strengthening it, right? And it's resonating. It's like the whole idea of resonance. Yeah, how you can break a glass, right, with the right resonant pitch.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, I mean, the healings that happen for people are, of biblical proportion. I mean, there's blind people that get their sight back, a man that had 50 brain tumors gone after a meditation.
That's
People,
so hard to like. Again, that's where my logic brain comes in, and I'm like, that's got to be bullshit.
and it's like all the studies and all the proof is like there, like he'll show slides and information and he's got the testing. I mean, like he's changing medical history, and so
Wow.
it's so powerful and it's so profound. And so to be a part of that living organism of conscious, creation and love to oneself and to the collective, we begin to see that there's no separation. So the work that I do with, the animal medicine that I work with is it's such a beautiful, like it just goes directly into it, because people begin to have these experiences and you begin to see that there is no separation between you and I. We at essence, it's one living organism. And so we want to feed that. We want to give to it. And the more that we give, the more we receive. It's a beautiful dance.
So yeah, that's a good segue in, because that's kind of what I was wanting to talk about next, because I've been seeing, yeah, that you've been very busy. Yeah, it was kind of hard for us to get this scheduled in, because I know that you're like all over the place. Tell us a little bit about that. What are you doing? What are you so busy with? What are you doing in the forest? Are y'all guys, what are y'all summoning out there?
Yeah. So a year after I started studying with Joe, I went to my first journey in the jungle to work with ayahuasca. I had actually been called energetically, spiritually. I felt this pull, this draw to go to Peru and to drink ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is this brew that is a vine from the jungle and a plant called chacruna. The natives mix these two in a brew, cook it over some time, and it creates this powerful elixir, this what we call soul healing medicine. And the active tryptamine in ayahuasca is DMT, dimethyltryptamine.
Mm,
So I'd felt this pull to the jungle to do this work, and yet there was a lot of fear because I didn't know a soul that had done this, but I believed that there was a reason why it just kept coming up. So I just said a prayer to the universe: when the time is right, bring me the opportunity, make it so clear that I can't deny it's time for me to go, because I didn't want to force or just I didn't want to put a square peg in a round hole. I was like, if this is for me, then I
right.
the opportunity. And so the opportunity came. Actually, it was I had emailed a bunch of retreat centers. I'd forgotten about it. And I came back from a Dr. Joe event in October of 2016.
Hmm.
And I'd received an email confirmation from a retreat saying, we're doing a 10-day retreat. We're going to have a week in the jungle, 3 ayahuasca journeys, and then we'll go to Machu Picchu and have a San Pedro ceremony. And I was like, okay, I'm in. This is it. This is my opportunity. So I paid my deposit, and my family was a little bit concerned because of my history. So I spent, a good 10, 12 years of my life trying to destroy myself. I was addicted to drugs, had severe depression, just was in a lot of toxic, abusive relationships, and had numerous suicide attempts. And so I had struggled, a lot. And so in this moment of taking this journey out into the jungle, my family is a little bit like, what are you doing? You're in their perception. And I think a lot of people's perception, this is considered drugs. In my process of doing this work, I understand that medicine and drugs are two completely different things. We call this medicine because it actually brings us closer to spirit. Drugs, in my perception, actually sever that connection, create separation from spirit. So,
Mm,
So yes, I decided I'm going. I let my family know, and even though they were afraid and confused, they all at some soul level believed in what I was doing. And so for Christmas, they gifted me my flight to the jungle. So I set out in January and I went, and I had no idea who I was meeting or what it was going to be like. And my first journey, I didn't experience anything. My
Mhm.
second ceremony, it was right at the end. I began to feel the onsets of the medicine, and the ceremony was closed, and I was frustrated. And so when we were getting prepared to drink our final, ceremony with the ayahuasca, I just prayed, and I wrote in my journal over and over again my intentions. I did breath work. I was like, I came out here to have this experience. I'm gonna have this experience, and I did. The
So you
third
just like chugged it real fast that time.
No, it wasn't, it's so interesting. I mean, I mean, we could spend hours discussing like, ceremony and the amount of medicine. And it's really not necessarily the amount of medicine that somebody ingests or receives. It's about being open, about dropping expectations, about just, yeah, being an open vessel to receive. And so in this
Well,
journey,
also probably their tolerance too, perhaps, right?
what maybe to a point, but I had been on a cocktail of pharmaceutical drugs for 20 years. I was, misdiagnosed as an adolescent with some of these diagnoses that I think, doctors like to just, generalize and prescribe this person's depressed or you have bipolar. And so what happened is my gifts of sensitivity, of feeling, of tuning into energies and frequencies was blocked through these
Yeah,
pharmaceutical drugs. So
right,
20 years of consuming a cocktail of these pharmaceutical drugs, you lose your ability to sense, and your ability to trust in what you're sensing or feeling. So I think a lot of it in the beginnings of my working with the plants was a lot of cleaning, a lot of literally just clearing out all the toxicity that was in my brain and my body from years of toxicity of these chemicals that I had been ingesting.
right. Mm.
So, so at one point, I began to feel the sensation of the medicine, and I was seeing kind of like creepy crawlers and bugs and all this kind of stuff. And I was trying to move them away, but there really is no moving away. And then I heard this voice that said,
So
open.
these were like hallucinatory visions then of these bugs, you're saying? Okay,
Yes. And
sorry.
so, no worries. And so I'm trying to push them out of my sight, but there's no pushing out. I mean, it literally just is, it is. And so I heard this voice and said, open your eyes and look at your hands. And so in this process, I'm laying on my mat, I open my eyes and I look at my hands, and I have eyes looking back at me in the palms of my hands. And all of a
Wow.
sudden, this frequency started to move through my body, and my body started to shake, and my hands started to come up and do these things. And I could see this golden orbs, this light that was coming out of the eye in my hands. And then I started noticing that it was wherever I would shift my awareness, then that this energy was being sent there. And then I was shown lifetimes. I mean, there was, one vision in particular that I was shown where I was in a teepee, and my soul was at the apex of the teepee looking down at my body. And this was a different timeline. I was in a Native American tribe, and all the elders and the chief were surrounding my body, and my body was kind of doing similar things that was happening in the ayahuasca ceremony. But I was speaking this man's voice. And so what I understood in a very short amount of time, because I don't know, you never know how much time is irrelevant in
Right.
processes. But I was speaking this, like this male voice was coming through. And then I understood that my body or my purpose in the tribe was the channel, was the medium for the tribe. And I was channeling a deceased elder from the community to give information to the tribe. And so my soul is just seeing all this play out from the apex of the teepee down at the bottom. And then I hear this rattlesnake sound, and then like my soul then drops into my body in that timeline, and I just collapse, and I'm exhausted from the channeling. And the guy or the elders they're putting, water, they're giving me like cold compresses, they're taking care of me, they're thanking me for my service. And then the kind of vision dropped out. But there was so many, I mean, that's just one of these timelines that were being shown to me. And
Wow.
I just, so from the very beginning, like the medicine was was reminding me of what I had already been doing. And I
Mhm.
didn't understand that at the time. It was through continuing the practice. But, I came home from that retreat back to Houston, altered, changed forever. Something happened within me. I couldn't necessarily articulate it, but I communed. I mean, and it was the first time, I would say, um, that I felt love. And I mean this, and I don't mean this romantic love. It was this electric love that I believe is what, when people talk about God, it was like, that's what I connected to. And I wept and I wept and I wept. I mean, I couldn't get off my mat because I was so moved by all the information that was coming through, and that this love had existed within me all the time, forever. And
Yeah.
so what I had been seeking, through these various modalities, or these different ways, these different expressions, as a wounded child, as a wounded adolescent, trying to find love in these twisted ways, it was this marriage of this remembrance of it, the divine, this love that you've been seeking is the fabric of your existence. It's always
Mhm.
here and it will never go away. And so it was so profound. And I had no support because I didn't know anybody that had done this. I just was literally following intuitive guidance.
Mhm.
And I came back to Houston, and, I was living right near downtown, and I was living in a duplex, and I mean, drug deals and human trafficking deals happening across the street. I mean, just like, I mean, the roughness
Houston.
of Houston. Mhm.
Yeah.
And I said, I gotta move. I gotta leave. And I also need support. So I kept calling in and asking spirit, like, please support me in finding community or someone that I can connect to. And shortly thereafter, I had a light bulb moment to go on meetup.com. I found this group outside of Houston that was working with, shamans, and had a long talk with the organizer, checked out to what I had experienced in the jungle. And the next week I was in ceremony, and I never stopped. I immediately began being in service, assisting the shamans. Many of them, don't speak English. Spanish is my first language. So translating for them, just learning, and continuing this process of communing with the medicines, to heal myself. And so,
And where is this happening that you're saying now that you're doing it more often?
yeah,
Is this
so
nearby in
we,
Houston?
yeah, there's several spaces, several,
Mhm.
churches that offer, these medicines. And so, yeah, this place was in Porter, which they've now relocated to Huntsville, and, there's a few different spaces. And so,
Okay.
over time, I felt called to create a space of my own, not necessarily of my own, but to be the leader, to create a new space.
Mhm.
And so over the last year, I've been in that process of building community. We have a space in Cleveland. It's about an hour, 10 minutes outside of Houston.
Mhm.
Commune and offer, these various healing modalities and ceremonies to support people in their, in their journeys of healing, of soul healing, of transformation, of liberating themselves from the delusion or the illusions, the constructs that we've been conditioned by, to drop those and to connect more with their heart, to connect with the earth. And so, my life has been my initiation, is my message. And so as I've healed myself through, the work with Dr. Joe and the work with these sacred medicines, I received the calling to be that guide, and a conduit and a channel for other people to carry that healing, to carry that message forward.
Well, that's awesome, that you're finding something that does kind of fill that void, I guess, that you were speaking about earlier, that kind of just that emptiness in life, right? That's it's important for us, life without meaning is not life worth living, right? We have to find meaning in our lives to make it worth getting up and doing things, even if it is just doing it for others. But you got to find something that means a lot to you and that you feel like you're making a contribution. I know at myself as an artist, that's something that I've struggled with, that I continue to struggle with. I'm constantly questioning myself if my contributions as an artist are really, like, making a difference. And I do get confirmation of that when I do shows. And that's kind of one of the things that I love most about doing shows, is just that it gives you a moment to kind of see what people think. And then people, the people who it resonates with, they're like, oh, this is great. And it kind of lifts you up and you're like, okay, great. I'm connecting with people. Something's happening. Right. And so that's important to find something that allows you to have those kind of connections. So and now you're using ayahuasca, or are you also using the bufo, or what is this?
Yeah. So I have, I've been working with ayahuasca the longest. I don't currently serve that medicine. I'm in the process of training, and I trust that when the plant is ready for me to be of service to it, that I will receive that knowing. I work with bufo and combo, so a frog and a toad. And I would say it was September of 2017. So started with the plants January 2017, and September was when I had my first bufo in this timeline.
Mm-hmm.
A beautiful shaman from Mexico come serve, and that, my communion with that spirit, it was such a familiar, there was such a familiarity. It was this, how I missed you so much, this connection to this medicine, but also it was a taste. I believe it's just a fraction of the infinite eternal consciousness of love that is God, that I believe, bufo supports us in resurrecting. The active tryptamine in bufo, 5-MeO DMT, is nicknamed the God molecule. And so people experience in this process a death of ego, these ideas and these constructs that we've built up. So many of us think that we're our physical body and our occupations and our roles in life. And so in this process with bufo, it's like there's a dismantling, this dissolving of these labels, of these roles that we think we are, gets washed away. And so that process can be a bit jarring because it feels like you're dying. But in the process of surrendering to that, just opening and just surrendering, then you're merged with all that is. It is unbelievable, like incredible divine bliss, love, ecstasy. It is the signature, I believe, a small, like, fraction of a signature of the divine. And so in this process of communing, with the spirit, with this toad medicine, it began to knock down so many walls, so many beliefs, so many fears, so many things, that had been kind of ruling my life, or that I had identified with. And I knew at some point that I would be guiding people with these journeys, but I had a lot of my own, wreckage and traumas and energies that I needed to clear. So I spent 4 years assisting in ceremonies, receiving a lot of medicine, like getting really familiar with the myriad of ways, the many facets that bufo expresses through the human body. It's not always this, people just express in different ways, and people, and so it's important to become familiar with what.
Do people freak out? Sorry, I didn't mean
Yeah,
to
some
interrupt
people
you.
do. Yeah, some people do. I would say most people don't, but I mean, we don't know what people are carrying, as far as energetic, just what they've been through in their lives. So I consult with people before they come and sit in ceremony with me, to get an idea of, what are you working through? What is the calling? What is the drive or the desire to want to commune with this medicine, to support them in offering information of, kind of what to expect, and also for me to prepare myself energetically for, what could potentially, show up in the process. Yes.
Yeah, because that's one of those things I think we kind of chatted about a little bit, where I was kind of telling you how, like, I'm interested in this stuff, but I'm also scared because I did experiment with drugs earlier in life, and I guess I didn't have the most joyous experiences, especially towards the last few, which made me decide to stop, taking any kind of psychedelics. I don't know if I ever enjoyed it. It was a weird thing for me. So, it may just not be for me. I don't know, but I just, and maybe you can speak to this a bit, but because obviously there's a difference from what it's doing to you than, like, say, LSD or ecstasy or something. I'm hoping. I mean, it seems like it is, it's like you said, it's much more of like a kind of like earth connection type thing. Whereas like I feel like these other substances that are, the street drugs or whatever, they're all often cut with a lot of weird stuff too. So I don't even know if it's probably, even if you took pure LSD though, I don't know if I feel like it would probably give you the same um feelings, good, the positive aspects that you're getting, from some of these things like ayahuasca.
Mhm.
And but I think I scared myself so much with that crap early in life that like now I'm a bit traumatized, and I'm like, I don't think I ever want to take a hallucinogen again. I've thought about maybe mushrooms, but I don't know. So yeah, how do you feel about like mushrooms, for instance? That's a earthy kind of natural thing. Is that good or bad, or what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think there's necessarily good or bad. I just think that like there's spirit in nature, and we are
Mhm.
nature. And I think that that's the message, that these medicines are trying to teach us is, and so when you begin to, connect with, something that's synthesized, you're severing the direct link, the direct connection that's coming from the earth, that's coming from our mother, that's life force, that purity in its expression through the body. Uh,
Mhm.
so yeah, I mean the mushrooms, psilocybin, the cactus medicines, mescaline, the peyote, San
Oh
Pedro,
yeah.
ayahuasca, bufo. I mean, these are all, it's pure nature that we're working with, which in essence is us. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, that if it's there in nature, then it's probably for the most part okay, right? Obviously in the right doses and in the right form. Uh, so yeah, I would definitely feel more comfortable with that. Yeah, I kind of even forget about peyote. Is that one? Have you ever tried that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have. We've have a beautiful shaman that travels over, and we will be blessed with that medicine soon at our medicine space. We haven't had it. It's been some years since I've sat in peyote ceremony, but powerful, beautiful, ancient traditions that are continue to be passed down. And so, the process, when you're sharing about having some of these experiences, I think that set and setting, which I know that many people know, it makes a difference. But to create a container to this, for me, the ceremony is, this is prayer. This is communion with divine spirit. And so it is, I set the tone and set that frequency and open the container for it to be that. I mean, it's not a what's the word? I can't think of the word.
Like recreational?
Yes, that's the word. It's it's
Hmm.
it's not a, so the energy is already primed to focus and to allow the medicine to work in this sacred way. It is absolutely prayer and reverence to the gift of life, and to it's a responsibility. It's a huge piece of how the person who's receiving medicine, how the whole ceremony plays out is by the person who's facilitating. It is a responsibility to hold a specific frequency for
Hmm.
that person to feel safe, for the energy to be primed, for them to have, a profound healing process, because it's a direct link. The person who is receiving is having a direct link with the person who is serving. And so it is a continuous practice for me to clean my energy, to be present, to open my heart, to disconnect from the personality, and to be a conduit and a channel and a guide, for that person's process, for their healing. And the results are so different. I mean, because
Hmm.
there's some people that I know that have worked with psilocybin, or let's say other medicines in a quasi recreational way, and in a ceremonial setting, the outcome, the result of what they experienced was profoundly different.
Hmm. Yeah, I imagine it would be. And that's just an interesting idea in general. Like I've never thought about taking a hallucinogenic substance with the intent of like taking it like a spiritual, like going to church kind of thing, connecting with God type thing. I almost wonder if that would freak me out even more. Because like that's a meeting with God, like oh my God. Oops, sorry. But yeah, it's Yeah, wow. It sounds so exciting, and yet I'm so full of fear. It kind of pisses me off. I feel like I'm such a contradiction in some things, and that's certainly one of them. Like I want to feel something and experience something amazing, and at the same time, I'm very chicken shit about losing control.
Sure.
You know, that was the main thing that I remember in my um drug days that kind of kept me from going overboard, whereas like other people were dropping lots of acid and stuff like that, and I like taking like 4 or 5 tabs or strips or whatever, and I was just blown away. I think again it has something to do with tolerance, because there was just no way I could have taken that much, you know. But even still, like, you know, when I would just take like the minimal dose of something, um I it's like I enjoyed getting kind of close to the edge, but I'm very afraid of like jumping off the edge. You know, I would never take enough of anything that would make me feel like I was going there. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that is. I think yeah, obviously it's a bit of fear. And yeah, it's mainly like losing control. So I think it would be hard for me to do this right, because I know that I even watched a video about a guy who very scientifically attempted to do ayahuasca like in the setting that you're talking about. Like he went on a retreat somewhere in South America, and he was with a bunch of shamans, and it was totally legit. You know, he took some, and he explained his hallucinations quite well in this video. But he mentions that he kind of regrets it in retrospect, that he wasn't able to let himself like just let go. Yeah, you know, he kind of talked about how, I wish that, looking back, that if I could have just maybe let go of the fear and just see where it takes me, then I could have fully understood the experience that I was supposed to have. But because I was so afraid, didn't allow that to happen, and so therefore I kind of had like a half-ass experience. That's what he says, and I feel like that's been my experience with a lot of that kind of stuff too. Is just, you know, because I don't want to go like crazy or insane. You know, there's certainly been those people who've, or at least you hear about it. I don't know if I've ever actually met anybody, but you hear about, oh, well, they took too much acid and now they're a vegetable, right, or something like that. Um, I don't know if there's a possibility with that in these instances, without, you know, like taking like an or overdose or taking too much. I mean, I'm assuming there probably is, and that's why you do need to be like in a very controlled setting with somebody who knows what they're doing and knows the dosage and knows how to handle that. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, working with trusted shamans, trusted guides, trusted facilitators, I think it's so important that the person feels safe. And I think too, in our society, because I observed and I watched myself, in this process in the beginning of my journey with ayahuasca, was this idea that more is better. Like I have to, I have to reach this, like this expectation that if I drink more, that, ayahuasca, that I'm going to have a more profound effect. But it doesn't necessarily work that way. And so there's a learning to have respect, and to accept what is given, so I may not have this profound visions or whatnot. And there's been so many ceremonies where I didn't feel the connection to the spirit of the medicine many times. But in that, there's a teaching as well, right? So what you're referring to, as far as this person, feeling like, oh, like they were frustrated because they held on too much to fear. Well, that's the medicine. I mean, we are gifted information, insight into where our limitations are, where our work is. And so that, in essence, it's like, I don't know that there's any other modality that I have found yet where because someone trying to tell me, oh, you're holding on to too much fear, I was going to just, I wouldn't accept that in a way. But with the spirits working with you in this process of illuminating, oh, wow, like, it's almost like you're showing yourself, I mean, the medicine is just a conduit. And so then
Right.
the ability to take in and to receive that information no longer has a charge of like, somebody told me this. It's, you get to witness yourself in your own process of holding back, of resistance, of fighting, and that then you begin to see that is information. It is wisdom. It's medicine for you to begin to see in your waking life how
Mhm.
much you allow these energies or this fear or this trying to control, and so there's a softening, because once the veil has been lifted, once there's awareness, you can't necessarily unsee it. You can try, but it's going to keep happening until you begin to work with it, until you begin to lean into it, until you begin to have a different relationship. And that's where the evolution and the change occurs.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's a tough process for me there,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. And it's a
Um,
process, right? Like it's a journey. And so it's bit by bit, layer by layer, that we begin to peel back, let go of, the things that have been holding us from fullest, truest expression in whatever
mhm.
that looks like.
Yeah, I feel like I need to unpeel some things for sure. And yeah, I don't know how that works, and if it's sometimes I get mixed up too, like there's there's useful fears, I think sometimes, obviously, like the fear of a saber-toothed tiger,
Yeah.
right, will keep you from getting eaten by it, hopefully. But yeah, so I navigating fear is certainly like something that I'm continually struggling with, and
Oh,
figuring out like what's a rational fear and what's a valid fear or whatever, and what's a fear that's actually just me creating problems that don't exist,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. I hear you. I mean, it's a continuous process for me as well. Fear, that the frequency of fear it's intoxicating in a way that doesn't feel good. But again, those chemicals, that rush of chemicals that are released in the body, and this again is all information that I learned through Dr. Joe as well, is like
Right.
the body becomes addicted to that. And so we will create
Yeah.
scenarios unconsciously to activate that sensation in our bodies because
Oh
it's
my God. Yeah, I know.
charged. And so,
Yeah.
you
No, go
know,
ahead.
yeah, just learning to like, I mean, that's why the meditation is so powerful, is because you begin to observe the programmed thoughts, the recurring thoughts, the stories that we tell ourselves, and you begin to sense those emotions. How does your body feel when I'm telling this story? And then learning that we get to tell a new story, or we can continue telling the same story and we're going to keep creating the same thing. And so, yeah, I just and like you said, I mean, the fear response has kept us, the species in survival. It is set up to keep us alive to many extents. But it begins to stop serving its purpose. It's like,
Right.
and when a gazelle is going to be attacked by a lion, and then the lion, he runs away, and he's within, like, a couple of minutes, he's eating grass and back into homeostasis. He's centered again.
Hmm.
Like, that fear response is gone. With
Hmm.
humans, we will stay in that, and we will repeat it, and we'll continue to cycle that story over and over again, and then we condition
Right.
bodies to the emotion of fear. And
Yeah.
that unraveling process requires practicing the opposite of
Yeah.
because we continue practicing the fear, then that becomes the subconscious, unconscious response, to where now our bodies are leading us into a predictable destiny of creating more fear. And so if we want to break that, if we want to create a new, I mean, it's going to require us practicing freedom, practicing peace, practicing love. And so that process in the beginning is a very chaotic, challenging process, because you have those neural pathways, those grooves, that it's like the thought wants to go there because it's gone there so many times. And so when you
Yeah.
begin to do something different, everything is in this chaotic state. It doesn't feel comfortable, but it can't be comfortable because you're moving into a new state of being. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think, Bufo has been a powerful tool, medicine for me to support me in learning to overcome fear, to feel it and move through it, and realize that, that it was all a creation of the mind, that everything always turns out okay. And so,
Yeah,
yeah,
it seems like it gives you that kind of reset, right? It's kind of like it, you know, yeah, it's totally like hitting the reset button and giving you a chance to kind of break out of that routine. Because yeah, that's the problem that I know in my life and probably many other people's lives, is that you actually are in this like emotional routine where like Monday morning comes and you get your body's just like, oh, okay, it's time to dread life, you know.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and you're like, but I don't want to dread life. I'm trying to change things. And yeah, it's like it's really hard. You're pushing against like a set path and trying to carve out something new, and it's unknown and it's scary and you don't know where that path really is or where it leads. But um yeah, I've definitely been working on that quite a bit and trying my best. But um there certainly is yeah, mental pathways. There's a science to that that proves how you can change that. But again, like you said, it's going to be really hard the first couple times, and then as you start to kind of get into that new routine, I think your body eventually gives up trying to lead, and then it kind of starts following the mind, right? And yeah, it's just so hard. I've had a hard time with so many things, but I'm getting better. I'm starting to wake up earlier. That's been one of my things too, is because I've been in this weird vibration of like ever since high school or after high school, I guess maybe because I was forced to wake up early. But ever since after high school, um, I immediately got into this nightlife routine
Mm.
where like my mind, my body for the last couple decades feels comfortable going to sleep at 4 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I hate that. Like that's where my body will naturally gravitate. If I don't make myself go to bed by a certain time and really enforce something, if I kind of just let my body do what it wants, my body and my mind, and go to sleep when I want, yeah, I usually wind up going to sleep around like 4 a.m. But then I don't want to wake up till like 10 or something, you know. It's just it's a bad, I don't like that because then I'm off vibration with the world.
Mm.
Because there's actually, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but the circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so my circadian rhythm is almost like inverse at that point, which I
Mm.
guess if I'm going to do it, it needs to either be fully inverse or fully correct, you know, but not in between. And that's where I feel like I've been for many years. And I don't know, it could or could not have some effects. I think it does actually, though. I was even reading a little bit of this book at an Airbnb I was in recently. They had a coffee table book, and I was zooming through as many pages as I could of this book. It was called the 5 a.m. Club,
Okay.
and yeah, and I don't know if I ever heard of it, but it was pretty interesting. It was very inspiring to me. It was very self-explanatory too. The whole idea is that if you start waking up at 5 a.m., like your life changes and you become better and you become more sharp and things just start shaping up. And I could see how that would work because the whole idea is what he's saying in this book is like you rise with the sun, right? So by the time the sun is peaking up, you're peaking up. And it makes a lot of sense to me in a scientific biological way that if your bodily rhythms are going along with nature like you're supposed to be, you know, when we lived out in nature, you woke up because the sun was beaming on your head, and then you went to bed at night because you couldn't see anything. So there was like a natural rhythm that we created, obviously. um you know, we're not nocturnal beings per se. And so getting on that track makes a lot of sense to me, that maybe if I don't necessarily have to wake up at 5 a.m., but the closer I get to it, right? The closer I can get to rising with the sun and going to sleep when it's dark, I think will help in my biology, with my health, but also with my mental state. And I have noticed that when I wake up earlier, if I can get through that crappy, like cranky, you know, morning mind thing, if I can start getting through that, once I get my ass up and start doing things, I do feel like I'm a bit more clear headed or productive earlier in the day versus doing those same things, but a couple hours later, waking up a couple hours later. I don't know what that is, but I have to say that it's probably something to do with, yeah, just vibrations and cycles that we're supposed to be a part of.
Well,
Um,
I think, I mean, with you being an artist, it's very common. I mean, I wake up at between 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning, but
wow.
so many of my friends that are artists, they're going to bed at that time.
Yeah, seriously.
This like surge of inspiration, of creative inspiration that happens, sometime between 1 and 4 o'clock in the morning. The pineal gland is releasing more melatonin. There's less analytical mind, and so information is flowing through it, with coherence. And so I know a lot. I mean, I would say most of my friends that are artists are up at that time because that's the prime time to create, where they're not thinking about, is this good enough or what should I? It's like this flow. And so,
Right.
I would invite you to honor that too, with the work that you do, that, perhaps that's your process.
Yeah.
And it's okay, and check it out, try it out, try it out for a week, see what it feels like, how
Mhm.
are your creations, how's your inspiration, by, putting your body to sleep at a different time and waking up at a different time. I'd be curious to see, how your artistic expression, changes or varies, in that way.
Yeah, I would too. That's I guess that's what I am experimenting with right now. And uh yeah, you touched on a very interesting point though, because you're right. I think that's why naturally started gravitating towards that after high school, after I was not being forced anymore to wake up so early. Um yeah, I've always known that actually this is the battle I have, is because the later it gets, the more inspired I get. It's this weird thing. It doesn't even start kicking in usually until like the afternoon, but uh yeah, around 10 o'clock at night, things start heating up. And then really like, around 12 and then into the morning, like I've had, those are just great art time where you really can zone out. And I've been trying to figure out why that is. I figured it was a couple different things. I mean, I think it is now because you mentioned something there too, but I think it's a multitude of things. Um, it's quiet too. That's another thing because everyone else goes to bed. So it's like I have that peace and quiet and people aren't bugging me. Nothing's really going on. So there's that. Also, just tapping into the subconscious, because the more tired you get, the more like that dream realm kind of starts slipping in, right? You obviously, if you sleep deprive yourself, you start like even possibly hallucinating, you start acting weird, feeling weird. It starts feeling, yeah, your life starts feeling like a dream because your brain wants to go to sleep and go into a dream. And uh that certainly fuels creativity as well, when I'm trying to come up, especially because I consider my art surrealism. So I love tapping into the dream realm. I love tapping into the unknown and the other side and all that. So it behooves me to get in these kind of states. And
Sure.
so so that's why I've allowed myself to do it for so long. Um, the reason why I started wanting to change that was just mainly like efficiency reasons. Um, because I had noticed that if I stay on my off kilter schedule, there'd be so many times I'd be working on stuff and then I'd be like, oh man, I need to get this from Home Depot. Oh, they just closed.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to go get this from the art store. Oh, they just closed. Everyone's closed by the time I'm ready to do stuff.
Yeah.
By the time I realize, oh, I need this or that. So,
Mhm.
so that was one of the main reasons why I was like, I just got so tired of that happening. And I was like, well, maybe if I start waking up earlier, then I'll have these aha moments earlier, and then I'll actually have time to go to the store. And that has worked. I've noticed that now I'm actually able to find things before the places close. But so I don't know. That's a funny thing, and it's such a struggle. Again, I'm looking at my life and my habits, and I'm trying to optimize everything. I want everything to be optimized for success, and so yeah, there's a battle of these two sides going on for me, which is like, one, it's like 5 a.m. club, wake up early, grind, and do it right, go with the circadian rhythm of the world, and be in right vibration with the sun. And then there's this other side of me who's like, you are a child of the night, and you must tap into your the dark depths of your subconscious, and at all costs, right? Even at the cost of your health and your schedules and all this and that. It's like, it's for the art, right? So you gotta suffer. So yeah, it's been a little bit of suffering in there and that, and trying to figure out that. I know you don't have any like grand answer for that probably, but just venting here and
Yeah, no, I would
the
just invite you to just try it out. Like I said, like a week or two, just give yourself, okay, for these 2 weeks, I mean, because you might want to do more than a week, I mean, because you've been so conditioned to go to bed so late,
Mhm.
that it's going to be a little while before you can get your body back into that routine. But just to, as an experiment, just test it out and begin to notice, like, how's my creativity? Like, is it suppressing that like creative like process? Am I, because I think that's so important. I mean, sometimes we have, not everyone's method is good for us all. Like, does that make sense? Like, what works for one person can be helpful. Maybe you can take bits and pieces, from that, but it may
Right.
not be the design for living for you. And so I
Yeah.
think that it's fun to just explore, just as an experiment, no pressure. Because I think sometimes, we can generalize and say, well, that's the right way, and then feel bad about the way that we're doing it. And it's like, no, I think that we all get to kind of create, the narrative and play it out in the way that feels good and right for us. So yeah, just test it out. Be light about it.
I think so. Yeah. That's why that book inspired me, because I've been hearing about the ideas of, waking up early from all these success kind of gurus and things like that I watch and pay attention to. So it resonated with me in that, and that it confirmed what other people were saying. But at the same time, then I've also seen someone say, they were like, it's not really about waking up at a certain hour. It's just about what you're doing with your time while you're awake. And that also made a lot of sense to me too. I was kind of like, yeah, as long as I'm actually just being productive. So like you said, test it out and see if it affects productivity. If it does good, then keep it up. If not, then obviously that's probably not for you, right? So that's the way I guess I'm going to try my best to get closer to 5 a.m. Wow, I woke up at 5 a.m. once, and then like immediately the next day, I something prolonged me. Oh yeah, I was driving home from an art show, and so I was driving late into the morning. I was like, well, there goes that. I had 5 a.m. for one day. But yeah, so it's definitely going to take more effort to get that into a routine. But I do believe in getting into healthy routines, and I also believe that if I'm going to be awake at these a certain amount of hours every day anyway, then yeah, I should probably try to shift them to where they're most optimal. And for me, at least at this point in time, it's more optimal for me to shift it to the earlier hours, because then, mainly because of the business side of things, because I'm not just an artist, because I have to be a businessman too. I guess that's the main thing, is because there's things going on in the world, and I have to respond to people and get things done by their deadlines, and all these things going on. So living in the world that rises with the sun, it's probably just a good idea to rise with it too. And then you have the added benefit of your circadian rhythm is on point, and you're getting all of the benefits of being in alignment with the vibration of the world. So those are some of the motivators for me to try to go that route. But
I
let's see
believe
here. What's that?
do it. I said, I believe in you.
Okay. Real quick before I shift gears, why do you wake up at 4 or 5 a.m.?
Yeah. So, through years of studying with Dr. Joe, I mean, he would say like the pineal gland is releasing the highest amount of serotonin, like between 1 and 4 o'clock in the morning. So these times are, it's like, it's so much easier to bypass the analytical mind, the frontal lobe, and to drop into the subconscious too. So it's a lot easier to drop in and to begin to reprogram yourself.
Mm,
And it's also the prime time for mystical experiences. And I really enjoy having mystical experiences and exploring, yeah, the realms beyond the realm of material. And
sure.
so I've just been doing it for so many years. I haven't been super consistent here lately. I've been doing a lot of traveling and my body's been tired. So I've been allowing myself to sleep in, but sleeping in is like 6 o'clock in the morning. It's kind of the latest 6:30 that I'll get up uh,
Wow.
to start my meditation and do some exercise and take care of my physical, mental, spiritual well-being before I'm in service to others for the remainder of the day.
Do you get like 8 hours of sleep?
No, I generally a 6 seems to be like my prime, like that feels like the sweet spot.
Ah,
If I do more than 6, then I feel like I'm actually more tired, more fatigued.
mhm.
But sometimes I just need it. I've been doing quite a bit. I've been serving a lot in ceremony and coaching clients. I've been working a full-time job on top of all this that I am transitioning out of. Um, and I feel it's time. But to meet all the obligations and deadlines and such, it requires me to get up early, and I feel better. I mean, kind of like what you were saying, that time where you have your creative flow and you can feel it's quiet and everyone's asleep. It's the same thing at 4 o'clock in the morning, right? Most people are not waking up at this time. And so there is this stillness, there's this kind of pause, but as this energetic transition is happening from day to night and we're crossing over, and there's this, I don't know, I love early mornings. I get really excited about it.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great that you get excited about the morning. I'm yeah, it's something about it really is. I think it's just a habit from so many years of whatever was going on, especially well, I jumped into my entrepreneurial journey kind of like accidentally. I didn't mean to do it. It just kind of felt forced into it.
Mhm.
And so I've just yeah, I've been forced into a life for several years that I don't know. It was harder than it probably needed to be, and because of that, I've definitely developed some like mind patterns, some thought patterns that are very hard to get rid of. And for whatever reason, though, yeah, I've definitely made it hard for myself to get up early. Like for instance, today I woke up at 7, but th- then my analytical mind kind of came in and was like, you don't really have to be up. Like there's nothing you have to do right now. Why
Mhm.
don't you just kick back for a little bit longer? And my dumbass did that. But uh I've been trying to be better about that. Like, okay, you're up, just get up and start moving. It's a weird thing. My something about sleep, and once I'm waking up, it's so in it feels so good to be asleep.
Right. Yeah.
And I hardly ever wake up like ready, just like, okay, I'm going. I hardly ever wake. I want to be like that. I so want to be like a get up and go kind of person. But I've, and it's probably the story that I'm telling myself right now, isn't it? It's probably because I've been telling myself for so long, oh, Vincent, you're not a morning person. You hate mornings. So yeah, sure enough, I hate mornings.
Well, and
Right.
again, our bodies are the unconscious mind. And so the body, I mean, if people don't begin to learn mastery of mind over the body will lead us into, the predictable destiny. Like then we're servants to our bodies. So
Ah, you're right.
it's an interesting thing, because there are times where I'm like, I'm the same way. I'm like, oh my God, this feels so good. My cats are snuggled with me. It's like cold outside. I'm under these snuggly covers. I want to get up. Uh,
Right. Oh, winter's the worst.
oh, I know. Yeah. Um, but it's, I think once you get into a practice, or like once I get into the habit of communing with divine, with divinity, and to like feel that liberation and that peace just wash over me, there comes a point where it's like the soul is like knocking at the, like, let's go, come on, get up, I want to connect. And so then there becomes an excitement. But again, it's like any habit, when you're trying to create a new habit, it's there's a lot of effort involved until once you start, getting into that habit and routine, then it becomes a joy, it becomes
Yeah.
that you
But
look.
recognizing that is so important, and I'm glad it seems so like primary or something that like, but at the same time, like that hasn't been like a conscious thought on my mind that like, oh hey Vincent, by the way, your body is so used to this that your body is actually going to fight you to wake up early. and that's what I'm fighting in the morning every day. It's actually, yeah, my bodily routine is like, nah, dude, I'm used to laying, I'm used to chilling,
Right.
go
Right.
back to bed. And I
Yeah.
got to fight that mentally, and that's going to be the only way out. And then yeah, eventually then the new pathways start to form. And yeah, man, it's amazing how strong the body is its routines,
Sure.
how much, yeah, they imprint on the mind, and how difficult they make it to change anything, it's frustrating. But um there was one more thing I wanted to say about that, but mainly that was that, yeah, the it's interesting that yeah, the body gets stuck in that mode, and that we need to, for myself especially, if I'm trying to seek that that hour.
Mhm.
Because it's funny also, you mentioned that, yeah, 4 o'clock you wake up, and we're actually describing the same hour. We're both talking about it. It's just I've been coming at it at the end of my day, and you're coming at it at the beginning of your day.
Yeah.
And so that's something to kind of experiment with too, is, yeah, to just see like, well, which time is better. Because honestly, it'd be great if I woke up and was inspired to create, like, and just go. That's what I'm saying. Like, I want that. I need to tune my mind to be like that, because for so long I've been tuned in this, like, not morning guy, slow in the morning, takes me forever to like get around to do things unless I got to be somewhere. Then somehow I manage to do it. Uh, but yeah, so that's one of those things, is just disciplining myself. Discipline.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, the process of mentally rehearsing, like before you go to bed, or like as you're going to bed, like tell yourself and like play it out. Like, and sometimes when I'm laying in bed, if there's something that I really want an answer to come through in clarity, or if I'm like, I'll tell my body, okay, body or subconscious mind, I want you to like download, like understand, like hear me. We were going to wake up as soon as the alarm gets off in the morning. Okay. And so I
No snooze.
support me in getting the proper rest that I need, and we're getting up out of bed when the alarm hits. I usually have a couple of snoozes before I but yeah, begin to play with it. I mean, I think that when we can look at this from the viewpoint of an experiment, then it takes away that charge of like, oh, I didn't do it, I fucked up, or I didn't complete this process. So there's less of that pressure, and then we can just playfully see, okay, so I snoozed 3 times. Tomorrow, how can I do better? How can I show up better? I'll do twice.
Mm,
So it's just a process of seeing the progress. And when we can celebrate those wins, if you know get up just 30 minutes earlier, then there's kind of like there's a process of we have more trust in ourselves. We get to kind of congratulate ourselves, and that energy offers inspiration to want to do more. I think
yeah.
so much, I mean, in my own life, and I see this in other people's, we have this like, I got to do it perfectly or it's not good enough at all. And that is not that's not loving, and it doesn't serve us and truly moving into where we want to go, because then it's this almost like competition, or this um like a test in school, as opposed to play, and as opposed to recess. Okay. Like does that land?
Oh yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, and that's how I think that certainly is the way life should be, right? We should be able to move through it in a playful manner. Obviously, this, life is serious, but I think most of us take things too seriously. We get too wrapped up in, especially the negatives, and we get dragged down and bogged down into those things. And yeah, it is certainly beneficial, I think, at points like that, to look at game the life is a game, and you can bounce back, right? And if even if you lost this game today, there's a game tomorrow, and so yeah, there's certainly a way around there that people can take. I wanted to talk a little more about some things here. I have on a list here of a few things I wanted to talk about, and we've gone through several of them. Kind of bouncing back a bit to when we were talking about like some of the ayahuasca trips and stuff like that. I wanted to ask you if you've seen anything like this, because I've heard people talk about like little green elves. Have you seen or heard of this?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I've not seen elves. People experience and perceive all sorts of, different things. Sometimes they're shown, things of the past, kind of like some information that I was sharing earlier, past lifetimes, timelines. People are shown different experiences that they had in this lifetime, kind of core wounds were there, where they began to lose connection to themselves or to spirit. They began to fall into distrust in life and in the universe. Some people are shown, cosmic mystical beings. A man at a recent ceremony saw a shark with eyes that were lit up like coals driving a spaceship. So there's
Wow.
lots of information and things that come through, to people, for people.
Mm.
I have not experienced elves, so to speak. But
No little green men or anything.
no,
Okay.
no,
What
no.
about like a praying mantis?
There have been some people that have seen praying mantis. Yeah, there are beings there. You know, uh, for me, it's small-minded to think that humans are the only species that exist, in life.
Right.
There are a myriad of so many different entities and beings that exist, that people have, that I have experienced some different type of entities, beings, in journeys, in meditations, not necessarily having to be on plant medicine. Um, so yeah, there are beings that, and there's a lot of, malevolent beings that are here to, and beings filled with light that are here to support us in our journey of healing as well. So, I think that these medicines basically lift the veil to offer us insight into, beyond what 3D, what exists on planet Earth. And so
So,
I
so
personally believe that, all possibilities exist. If the mind can create it, it exists. It's real in some dimension, plane, or timeline.
yeah. Yeah, because it seems like that's what a lot of people have described while being on like DMT trips, is that they're kind of like interfacing with these like multi-dimensional beings. And I I give some credence to that. I'm always a skeptic, but at the same time, I'm also very open to the idea, like you said, that humans aren't the only intelligent life in the universe. It seems that seems highly unlikely. Also, the fact that our eyes only see a very small segment of the electromagnetic spectrum of light. We're only seeing a very small little shred of that, and there's this huge wide spectrum that we're just not even we can't even be aware of. So, and then there's also the ideas of like higher dimensions, higher actual spatial dimensions, and things like that, which correlate with string theory. So, I feel like there's plenty of scientific reason to believe that there is metaphysical, or yeah, in some form, other beings.
Sure.
Perhaps if they are, maybe they're non-corporeal. They may be kind of just, yeah, like spirit or whatever, not manifested physically, or they could also be physical beings from some other remote area, but they've learned how to tap into this power, right, that allows them to use telepathy or whatever to interact with others instantaneously. Yes. So there's I think it's totally plausible. And that's another one of those things though that kind of freaks me out a little bit, because I've heard stories about the elves, and I've also heard stories about a praying mantis type thing. Um, Not that I'm afraid of those. I actually think that'd be kind of cool if I saw something like that. Those are one of the things that makes me want to try it. I'm like, that'd be so cool to actually like interface with an alien or something. But I am a little weary of interfacing with a demon.
Mm.
And then there's that whole like dichotomy, is like, well, are the aliens demons or demons aliens? What is there a difference? Is there some good, some bad? I kind of lean towards the latter there, that there's probably good beings that you can come in contact with, as well as bad ones,
Yeah.
or dark souls or spirits. Um, so you said something a little bit about that. Is that kind of where you're at with that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, this could again be a topic of conversation that would lead to hours of discussion. I Since I was a young child, I would tune in and would feel these darker, heavier, denser energies, entities. It would frighten me. And since I was a young child, I actually remember more dreams than I do waking life memories. Uh,
Wow.
and so these entities, were constantly visiting me, tormenting me. In dreamland, and then it's very bizarre because then this begins to translate into 3D physical reality. um 5 years ago, which is the kind of just alluding to some of this trauma that I experienced. So I have absolutely interfaced physically, with beings that are very lost, that feed off of fear and desire, for.
So you interface with them physically, you're saying. So what did they come to you like in the like as in like a person and they're manifest inside that person? Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah. These things can come in, and especially in years of some of these heavier drug addiction years too, the experiences and things that I witnessed, that I experienced, that it's hard to even articulate or to make sense of. But when, again, everything in this universe is made up of energy. So depending on what frequency you're vibrating at, you can draw in, some really weird energies. The higher the frequency, then you can also draw in some of these really beautiful frequencies and entities. And, it doesn't need to be in an ayahuasca ceremony and a journey to connect with some of these beings. I mean, this happens in these workshops with Dr. Joe. I mean, and I would say the most common that people experience are these blue beings, these tall blue light beings that come in and rip out tumors and reorganize people's bodies, like put them back together in ways, and there's no exogenous substance that's being used. And so how is this happening? Well, it's about frequency. So when we consume some of these medicines, these beautiful medicines that open us up, we're vibrating at a higher frequency. And so these beings that are of light, that want to support us, we have to raise our frequency in order for us to connect with them. They're not going to lower their frequency to connect to us on a more dense level. But if we descend and there's other energies that the lower the frequency is, then we're also susceptible for this to come in. And so it's all about, like, where's your frequency? Like, what, at what frequency are you tuning into, or are you vibrating at? But a lot of it is a little bit confusing too, and this has been part of my work on this path is, learning to not succumb to the fear, and to find the teachings, the lessons in these interactions, that I've had, that have, in essence, I feel that it has brought me, catapulted me into expansion, into my gifts, this, through these interactions.
Yeah. Have
Yeah.
you ever heard of The Art of Dreaming by Carlos Castaneda?
Course. So crazy story. I bought that book at a yard sale. I mean, I just like pick stuff up, and especially with books, like there's an energetic draw to them, and they'll put them on the shelf. And it's like at some point I'll be called to pick it up and begin reading it. So I brought that book with me to the Dr. Joe event that I shared, where like I just started remembering. I had these profound mystical experiences.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't read it until the plane ride back. And I'm reading this book, and my whole body's lighting up in chills. And it's just, truth is just resonating. And I'm realizing, I think that for a lot of people, these, books of, the teachings of Don Juan from Carlos Castaneda, that they're like fables or like and for me, I realized in this moment, I'm reading this book because there were so many different things that were kind of locking in and aligning to the workshop and the work that we just did. I'm like, this is a text on learning to master the realms of dreaming. And
Yeah.
so I haven't read it all the way through, because I started doing the teachings, or like the practices, about look at your hands, like, the
Right.
process of like being conscious and looking at your hands. But I
In a
learned a
dream.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned a lot too. So it was really interesting. Don Juan is this Mexican sorcerer in the Sonoran Desert who's a mystic and uses these plants. And I'm like, this is really interesting because I'm Mexican. Sonora is the state of Mexico where the toad, where Bufo lives. And I've lived in the desert. If I haven't lived in Houston, I've lived in the desert, very close to the Sonoran Desert. And
Mhm.
so just the synchronicities and the connections and then the dreaming. And so Don Juan talks about like the dream realm and how sorcerers are able to, when you learn to no longer succumb to, like when you can master the sensation of fear or the emotions or the things that are going on, and you can take that energy, you can harness the energy and the entity that then you in your waking life you use it as your power as a magician, as a sorcerer, as a healer. And so it just really fascinating information. And since you brought it up, I'm like, it's time to kind of tune back into that to continue to remind myself and apply some more of those tools because it just felt so fitting. I'm like, how is this happening? I've had this book here laying on the shelf forever. I bring it. And then after having this experience and just kind of putting it all together, it's like, oh, we can take this energy, it's alchemy at its finest, using this dark energy, consuming it in a way to where then we can then alchemize it and channel it in a way that we desire through love. And so it's like, I think about the Matrix. This is exactly what Neo was doing at the very end. He just
Mhm.
allowed, what is it, Mr. Anderson to
Right.
consume him, and it
Or
gave him
Smith.
power, right, to be able to create even more. So it's that overcoming of fear, which is a really, like we have been speaking about, it's a really interesting process.
That's a pretty profound thought there. I never really thought about the ending of the Matrix there when that happens. That's kind of what's happening is he's almost, yeah, like in a way surrendering to that dark force, and then well, like he consumes it, and then yeah, kind of like you said, alchemizes it and turns it into like this massive positive energy instead, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
Wow.
that when we lose that fear, so some of these lessons and teachings that I've had with, when you ask about these, darker forces or energies, how it is, and it continues to be a teaching of, wow, the magnitude and the power of love that exists within me, that I've been able to, that, to continue to take those energies, love it. And love is the frequency that heals, which create it's the ultimate transmuter, and it alters and shifts everything. And so at that point when and again we forget and then we remember, but when we
Right.
can be in that state of knowing of God force is the essence of who I am, and nothing can penetrate. There is no other force than that. Then that begins to dissolve the fear, and it's like, bring it. Like I'm all in.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I've found the art of dreaming. Actually, a friend in yeah, I think it was in high school, maybe junior high. It was early in life. Um, we were talking about something. I've always been interested in the esoteric, so I must have said something to that effect. And then my friend was like, "Oh, you're into that? Well, check out this book." And he basically just gave it to me, and and it was The Art of Dreaming. And I uh I read through it, and I tried, yeah, like there's like the first gate of dreaming, like um and then there's like the second. I think the first gate of dreaming was just to actually try to get yourself to go into a lucid dream, because that's basically what the whole book is about, is lucid dreaming, becoming aware that you're in a dream, and then kind of yeah, becoming like Neo in the Matrix basically, and learning how to use dreams and as like a kind of like a training ground or something for manifestation and just building your power. And I actually had massive success with it, just like right off the bat. And it was really, it blew me away. Like I remember I told the dude like a week later, he was like, "Hey, yeah, did you read that book or any?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually I did." And I tried it, and I tried the second gate of dreaming where it said to look for your hands, right? And so in this dream, I did that. I was like, I went and I knew I was dreaming, and I was like, okay, find your hands. And I looked down at my hands, and like, it was just so trippy. My fingers were just like kind of like started waving around almost like snakes, but they weren't. They just like looked like kind of spaghettified. It was just really weird.
Mhm.
And that was one of those things. I guess that's why they tell you to find your hands, to look at your hands, because you'll usually notice when you look at your hands like something's off and it's not just normal hands. So there's other things too they say to look for that'll help you recognize you're in a lucid dream, such as flipping a light switch. Apparently, those don't work in dreams very well. Everything's just always illuminated or something, I guess. I don't know if that would work for me, but I've heard that works, and there's a few other ones too. That people, of course, there's the cliche of like pinching yourself or something, but there's different cues that you can look for that will help you with recognizing that you're in a dream. But what sucks for me was that I started off so strong with that again I scared myself with it, because then after that second gate, then there was more, where basically in that book he kind of talks about interfacing with what he calls inorganic beings.
Mhm.
And I feel like I started interfacing with them, and then yeah, that kind of freaked me out, because he did even kind of mention, he's like, the I can't remember if he said there's good ones or not, but I know he mentioned that there was like evil or dark spirits. The weird thing that really kind of scared me too was that he was kind of like, to get to the next levels of dreaming, you actually have to like, you have to use them, like they have to show you things, and then you have to be strong enough to like not let them overpower you, and to deceive you or whatever, take you down a dark path, but at the same time you have to be able to learn from them. And I remember just like the next time I went into a lucid dream, I felt like I felt them near me. Like I just kind of felt surrounded, and I was like, okay, this is really happening. They're really actually coming on me hard. Like
Mhm.
maybe because I was so successful, they're like, oh, here's a a very tuned being. Let's see what we can do with him. And yeah, I don't know. I found that I was spending a lot of time and energy thinking about this stuff, and then I again, just fear, I think, kind of wiped over me, and I eventually kind of was like, all right, well, you know what, I'm gonna work in the real world, and I'm gonna leave the dreams alone for a little while. And now, like ever since then, there's been several times where I've tried to kind of get back into it, and it's been a lot harder now. It
Mhm.
kind of pisses me off. Like I felt like I had this very nice open door decades ago, but I'm older now and I'm more set in my ways. And so it's a lot harder now for me to kind of reopen that door if I want to. Um,
Belief and perception. I guarantee you, if you start practicing at it, you'll go right back in. I mean, again, just with any new habit, because that's a
Probably, yeah.
gift. I believe it's a gift. The dream realm to me, I did my high school like dissertation paper on dreaming. I was always
Wow.
fascinated with dreams.
Me too. Yeah.
And as I've grown older and the longer I'm on this path of healing, my journey of expansion of consciousness, it's like, who told us that the dream realm is less than, like, we're still conscious. I mean, so, I
Yeah.
mean, the base level of like life, it's consciousness. So what makes the dream realm less important than the 3D realm? And we spend, average person 8 hours, so a third of our life in this realm,
Right.
because has a tremendous amount of information and insight. But even so, when I was a little girl, I remember going to bed and I would just like brace myself, like, okay, get ready, because we're going into a different world. Like we're gonna go to battle, we're gonna have to work with these, fight off these monsters or these entities or what, like preparing myself for that, like as a young child. It's really, really interesting. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like yeah, you should definitely, well, you said you've already done a little bit of the art of dreaming. I definitely would be interested to see
Yeah.
where, if you were able to progress with that, and where that goes. I do want to take it up again soon, and it does just require a little more consistent attention, because you're right. I mean, when I want to lucid dream, it's not too hard. Usually I just have to, kind of like what you were mentioning earlier, to like prime myself before bed. and that usually will work. And if I keep doing that, it gets more and more uh yeah, again, it's just all about habits, right? It's like if you're habitual and you're serious about it and you keep doing it and you do it with strong intent, things will start materializing.
Yes.
I've noticed I have a really good time with a lot easier time with dreams also though when I'm like completely sober, like
Mm.
when I'm not taking anything.
Yeah.
And that annoys me because, I like to be able to enjoy myself sometimes. And
Sure.
so I think that's also been a hard one for me, is to like stay sober long enough to where I've cleared out any of the fog.
Yeah.
And the only things that I'm talking about here, by the way, is mainly just any like THC substance.
Mhm.
Lately, for a while now, I've been kind of enjoying some of the Delta 8,
Mhm.
some of the stuff that you can get legally now here in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, if it's legal, it's all good, right? Uh, but so I've been enjoying a bit of that, but it does have the same effect that I've always noticed that marijuana has had on my dreams. I've
Yeah.
never understood that really, other than I guess it just because it's like clouds your brain, you get kind of foggy headed, so you just you have a harder time remembering things or something. But yeah, anytime I'm on a THC based product, it seems I have a very hard time with remembering my dreams and going into the lucid. If I am lucid, I don't remember, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's mainly about the memory of the dreams that seem highly affected by
Sure.
pot. And I hate that. It
I
makes me
know.
so mad because I want both. I want the best of both worlds. But
Yeah.
yeah, I have to discipline myself if I really want to get back into dreaming. And yeah, like setting the intent, like you said too, like if I just kind of set that intent and really like marinate on that for like the last 10-15 minutes before I go to sleep, if I'm thinking I'm gonna lucid dream, or at least at best I'll be like, I'm gonna remember my dreams tonight, I'm gonna remember my dreams. Usually I'll remember at least one dream.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then and then if I keep doing that for day after day, it gets more and more vivid. Like I can start remembering more details and longer dreams, and yeah, they start turning into these big stories and multiple dreams, and writing them down too, of course, having a dream journal, and actually the act of writing them down each morning. When I was doing that, I was getting them so consistently that I actually did kind of stop, just because I got tired of writing down all my dreams. I was like, damn, every morning I got to write something now. And so I kind of stopped writing them, thinking, okay, well, I'll just write down the important ones.
Mhm.
And then when I did that, then they kind of stopped. I stopped remembering them. It's like I
Interesting.
can't just pick and choose and be like, oh, I'm only going to write down the important ones. It really has to be like a study, right? Where you're just like, no, it's consistent everyday type thing.
Yeah.
But I think dreams are just, yeah, like you said, they are just as important as your waking life. I really believe, because I think you can. Uh, there's just so much that you can do. It's like kind of like opening the hood of the car and like looking at what's in the engine, and you can clean things out, and you can see things for what they really are. Your brain, much like some of these revelations that you're saying occur to people under these trips and whatnot, is that uh, it's just revealing another part of you that you're kind of like locked away. You have it locked and keyed away, but it's still there and it's accessible.
Mhm.
And a lot of times in dreams, that's why I feel like, well, one of the many reasons why I feel like they're so important is just because you are actually given the key to unlock some of those doors that your ego is not allowing you into,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
And there's those like traumas and things like that, and just suppressed emotions and feelings and yearnings, right? So things that you're suppressing from yourself in real life, you'll live those things out in your dreams often. And so that's a way to kind of understand what you want,
Mhm.
right? Is like, if I keep dreaming about this, I'm like, wow, I keep having this wonderful dream of this and this happening, right? It's like, oh, okay, that's maybe I need to try to make that a reality then, because I keep coming back to this and wanting this. But you won't even know that if you don't remember any of your dreams.
Yeah.
If they're all just gone as soon as you wake up, then all of that knowledge, all of that self-discovery, well, it's never discovered. It remains uncovered in the depths of the mind. And so that's why I think it's so important for me and for many of us to explore the dream realm, is because there's just, yeah, all of this untapped potential. My my first art series actually came from a dream.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I'll try to send it to you if you haven't. But it was this big, crazy illustrated drawing of like this Asian street scene celebration, and they're carrying this large palanquin, like carriage type thing through the streets. And that was an illustration that I actually saw in a lucid dream, uh, and that changed my life. Actually, the Vincent before that dream and the Vincent after that dream are two different people, because the person after that dream had this vision and this inclination to recreate that, because the idea, it was so amazing, the artwork that I saw in that dream, that I remember in the dream thinking to myself, like, I want to remember this when I wake up, and I want to see this, I want to recreate this, because I want the world to see it, because if I don't recreate this, I'm the only person who ever gets to see this
Wow.
amazing
Wow.
piece of art. And it was such a weird thing. It was kind of like a download. It really was, because it was something so outside of myself, that image was not anything like anything I'd ever created before, and it pushed me far beyond my limits to try to attempt to create something like what I saw in that dream. So it really changed me, you
So
know.
that's so beautiful.
Yeah, and so I also do kind of yearn for more of those kind of experiences too, though, because I was like, wow, well, that was pretty cool. Like, what if we could have experiences like that more often?
Yeah.
So that's what gets me into the dream realm is, and so I start journaling, and I have a nice compendium of crazy cool ideas for artwork that have developed just from dreams alone. And I actually get a lot of music from dreams too. I don't know if you're aware, but I'm also a musician. Um, so
This is
yeah, I actually go ahead.
this is so awesome. So you get downloads of songs that you create in your dreams?
Yeah, it's so weird that I've gotten more like more melodies from my dreams than I have artwork, which it's just a
Wow.
weird thing. I don't know why. But I am a musician and an artist, so I don't know. Either way, though, that happens, and I'll wake up and I'll just have this melody in my head, and I'll like grab my phone or something and just kind of like hum it real quick, to make sure I don't forget it.
That's
And I have a bunch of those. I probably have, yeah, like an album's worth of like me humming these funky little tunes
wow.
that I could turn those into songs. I've only turned like one, maybe, well, a couple of them into songs. And one of them actually, yeah, one of the first songs actually that I can remember that came from a dream is like one of my best songs too. So there's that. So yeah,
Oh,
there's like one of my best pieces of art that started my art career came from a dream. One of my best songs that I ever wrote came from a dream. um yeah, the dreams are like a cool place to tap into, to find inspiration, um to find something that's almost outside of yourself. And that's what I think is really amazing about it, is because it does it if it feels like, even if it is all in my head, it's accessing a part of my head that I can't normally access. And it very well may be that I'm actually accessing something outside of my head too. I'm quite open to that idea um that there is this, what they call like the Akashic records.
mhm.
And Akashic records is like this kind of ancient idea that basically all knowledge of all of anything that ever was or ever will be in the universe like exists in like kind of like a collective metaphysical place. Yeah, and the idea is that we can actually tap into this all-seeing, all-knowing knowledge. It almost is kind of like tapping into God's brain or something, because he would know all everything, right? And so that's kind of what it feels like you're doing when you tap into dreams, or probably even when people have visions on some of these on psychedelics. So but yeah, I really do feel like that it's like tapping into something else, because this dream, these songs, and this artwork is like outside of me, and it's just like answering a call that I make. Because I remember even at the time with that art, I was so lost, and I was begging the universe, my life. This was even before I was spiritual, but I was just begging for something to happen, for a change. I needed a breakthrough. I needed a direction for my art, and that dream just like straight up answered it for me. It was like I knew after that dream, I was like, okay, there's a direction that looks really cool and challenging, and I'm gonna go for it. And yeah, a lot of cool things happened as a result of that. So I want more of those kind of experiences.
Oh,
And I'm
incredible.
trying to find ways, yeah, to do that without scaring myself too much.
I get,
um,
oh, that's incredible. I'd love to hear, the songs that you've created from that. That's so awesome.
oh
Do you
yeah, I
have
certainly have
fire?
to let you hear it.
Have you,
Um, one
you,
of them you'll probably really like because it was when I started getting into from the this is interesting too. So that art series set me off on these different paths of studying different cultures, um, 4 different cultures for one for each of the 4 stages of this Atlas Beetle's metamorphosis, which was just the idea that I kind of came up with post lucid dream. But so the fourth and final stage that I was going through in that metamorphosis was I decided to make that one take place in like ancient Mesoamerica, so like Aztec, Mayan, this kind of stuff.
yeah.
Um, I'm half Mexican too, so I think that also made me want to maybe tap into something that perhaps has some cultural roots for me. But either way, so all of that spawning from that lucid dream, then I'm working on this Mesoamerican art piece to match that. And so as I'm working on each of these 4 stages, I've always tried to envelop myself in the culture that I was studying. So I would watch documentaries, I would read about them, I'd download hundreds of images, and I would also listen to the music. If I could find any of the music of this culture, I wanted to hear it while I was creating the art. I wanted to be vibing in it. And so I was listening to a lot of like Aztec tribal music that I could find on YouTube. So that stuff was just like teeming in my mind. And then sure enough, like after a couple weeks or months of that, melodies started popping up in my head as I was waking up every morning. Like I would just get, and they were totally like, yeah, like Native American sounding melodies. Like it was just like, this kind of like voice kind of chanting type stuff with just like a real basic boom, 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 boom kind of beat.
Mhm, mhm.
And so I'm like, yeah, I have a bunch of these little voice memos of them. I've only made one of them kind of like into a full song, I guess, but I'll send it to you. You'll probably like
Ah, yeah,
it.
that's so awesome. That's so incredible.
It's so cool just to like to wake up with like a gift. It's just like that's how it feels like. I feel like when it happens, I like wake up and like, oh cool, I got
Yeah.
another download. Uh, so I wish I could control that more, and I think I could. I just, again, consistency. So I have a few more questions here I wanted to get to before I wrap it up with you. We kind of talked about this, so I'm guessing I was going to ask you, are aliens real?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I had a feeling you would say yes to that, especially based on what we spoke about earlier with all that so yeah, possibly interfacing with aliens. Do you think that that's maybe some of those inorganic beings?
Yeah. There's just been so many weird, bizarre things that are just hard to, I mean, what is it? When you experience something and then your mind tries to convince you that it wasn't real,
Hmm.
the term or the name for that right now. But I've had some really interesting experiences. One that occurred, this was right after my first advanced workshop with Dr. Joe. This was October 2016. I
Hmm.
learned so much at this event. I mean, I was putting all these pieces together of just like, which another thing that kind of drew me to you was the sacred geometry that you use in your art, which is, I think it's there's like these mathematical equations that are like, consistent and recurring in nature, and these syntropic patterns that hold this information. And my mind was just being blown
Right.
with all of this information at this event with Dr. Joe. And I had left my body numerous times doing the breath work. My pineal gland was super activated. And so the pineal gland serves as it's like a receiver and transmitter of energy. When you learn how to activate it, it's like this antenna that begins to pick up frequencies and information that's like just beyond what we can perceive in our 5 senses. And so mystical experiences and weird things will begin to happen. So I was already primed. I had, a tremendous amount of energy in my body from this event. And I came home And I was living in downtown. And so there was a lot of artists. It was right by the White Oak Music Hall where I lived. And so people would just kind of come over. I had a huge 10-foot table where I'd sit and work on jewelry, and people would come and bring their crafts and just hang out, have a glass of
Sounds
wine.
like so much fun.
So fun. I mean, yeah, good times. So I'm sitting there, and I had a girlfriend who wanted to come over and knit while I was making jewelry, and she was just interested in my experience at this event. So I'm just sharing with her like all this experience, and I love antiques, and I mean, I love to thrift and find all these really cool like vintage pieces and furniture, stuff like this. So I had all these like antique like gooseneck lamps on my table for jewelry making, and we're sitting there, and I'm talking to her, and we're having a glass of wine, and I'm sharing with her about my experience, and she says, "What's that noise?" And I'm like, "What?" And she kind of said that she could hear like some kind of voice coming through something like talking. And I was like, is somebody on your phone? Sometimes you accidentally answer and somebody's like, "Hello," and you can kind of hear it through the phone.
Like a butt dialed or something.
Yeah. And I'm like, she's like, "Nobody's on my phone." And then I thought, oh, you know what? Maybe What the Bleep Do We Know is playing, because I had it in this DVD ROM in the laptop. And so then I go over to the laptop. It's not playing. There's nothing playing. And what it sounds like is like interference on a CB radio. Like it's kind of like this, and it started
Like that
getting
white noise.
yeah, but every once in a while you could hear kind of like a voice or something come through, and it's getting louder. And I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, what's happening? And all of a sudden, it was as if there was a vacuum, like something happened and went and sucked all of the energy out of the room. And in this moment, as this is like super coherent, still clear energy, this voice comes through and says, "We know what you're looking for. We know what you're doing." And then all of a sudden, boom, like the energy went like back in, and she's crying, and I'm kind of laughing to myself because I'm like, this is so good. Like I literally, like I knew that my energy, the frequency that I was vibrating at was so high that it was calling in some, what do you want to call it? Aliens? I don't know. I mean, the only thing I know is that I had a next door neighbor who was just an incredibly gifted, brilliant being, probably from some other planet, who was powering his side of the duplex without paying for electricity. He would like build these Tesla coil. I mean, he had these like little mini UFOs. Anyway, just radical. But he was telling me that there was something about these lamps, and that he uses these tube. I'm going to trip it up, but there was some contraption. There was some piece of these older lamps that are used for channeling energies, transmissions. Who knows?
Wow.
I don't know how to scientifically explain that, but really bizarre things started coming through, as a result of me beginning to tap into, beginning to learn to activate my pineal gland. So, yeah, I mean, I think that we also have this idea, like we've been kind of conditioned to think that aliens look a certain way, or they have this specific, intention or purpose. I think we don't. I think we. I mean, I just trust that I know very little, but I know that there are beings that are not humans, that are existing, that are around us all the time. And so in the process of ascending or elevating the frequency, there's a greater connection to some of these energies, some of these beings.
Have you ever heard of Dr. Stephen Greer?
Oh, I love him. Love
Okay, great.
him.
Cool,
Yeah.
cool.
I was just telling a sister about him yesterday. I'm like, this man, I mean, he's just so humble, and his experiences as a young man, I mean, and then being recruited, by the CIA to support in expressing and sharing this information. And now he just shares it publicly. But, there's groups all around that do this CE5 channeling. And so I
Yeah.
think that we have so much proof that it's silly to say that it doesn't exist. I think it's just fear.
Right.
That supports people and just shutting that door, but
Mhm.
they're here.
Yeah, and one of the most important things that I've gotten from him too is that aliens do exist. We can communicate with them telepathically, and they are trying to save us and help us get through this very rough period of our evolution. And um, basically, the U.S. government has known about them, has already retrieved their crafts, since like the 40s.
Yeah.
Um, and and they're suppressing the technology from us, life-saving technologies and all kinds of cool things that we could be having, as well as they plan on creating a cosmic false flag where they're going to use these reverse engineered technologies to pretend like aliens are attacking just so they can consolidate more power and, put us under the thumb of a one world government tyranny. I believe that to be true because there's a lot of signs of all that happening. Yeah, I think he's right. It's like if you see an alien scare, just know it's a hoax. It's a cosmic false flag being perpetrated, because if these aliens could make it here, they would have already blown our asses up.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. That's so
So,
fast.
but
It's
oh yeah, and one more thing too about him though, the CE5. Yeah, so we need to do that. Do you know
yeah.
anybody who'd be down to do that?
I know
Like,
a woman, a sister, who started a healing center, a shamanic church, she started with CE5 before she started, working with the plants. So I could definitely get some information. There's some other people that I've met along the way on the shamanic path that have connected to that. So I know that there are groups, and what I
mhm.
love too about Dr. Greer is that have you seen this Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, the documentary that he put out? It was on Amazon Prime for a while. I don't know that it's
I've
still on.
probably seen it because I've watched a lot. I think I've seen all his documentaries, but I might have missed one.
Okay, yeah, it's so good. And towards the very end, like, because what he's, it's like I think that those of us that are called to help, the ascension of humanity through this, what I believe is this new level of consciousness, this new consciousness that's emerging.
Yeah.
There's a calling for those of us that, with our myriad of gifts, like rise up and share, because this is how we're going to heal as a collective, is by expressing and being the very thing that perhaps we've been told we can't, or it's not good enough, or whatever. Or it's not real. You can't sense it with your five senses. It's like, so I'm seeing this emergence of like so many different, modalities of healing, of expression, of consciousness expansion. And at the very end of Dr. Greer's documentary of CE5, he, because his intention as well in sharing this information is, hey, wake up. Like, we are much greater than what we've been told we are.
Yeah.
Open to your gifts, trust yourself, trust your power. And so he says, all it takes is 1% of the collective consciousness to wake up, and that will entrain all of like the world.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this moment where you see these little like pinpoints, these stars that are just kind of floating in this chaotic way all over as if they were in space. And as he's saying this, he's like, all it takes is 1%. And then all of a sudden they just begin to entrain. And there's this beautiful coherent wave of
Mm.
consciousness. And it's like, wow, that's all it takes is 1%. So those of us that have been called to step into our gifts, to remember, to share, to help awaken, yeah, it's just beautiful, because I can see it.
It's so important.
It is. It is.
Yeah. People don't realize it. I think, it can be easily dismissed as like, oh, that's some spiritual mumbo jumbo or whatever, feel good stuff. But no, like you just said, that there's actually a scientific reasoning behind how, like, we can go back to Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I think he's even talked about it too, how like, once you've corrected your energy, and then there's, like we were talking about, when there's groups of people and it's amplified, well, just scale that up, right? So
Yeah.
if more people on earth start vibrating higher and with love, eventually we reach a tipping point where we actually start like tipping the scale, right? To where like humanity as a whole will start meeting us up here, right? Instead of us always meeting the rest of the humanity down here.
Yeah.
Because that's what it seems like a lot of us have had to do for so long, is kind of keep getting pulled down when we're just trying to lift everything up.
Sure.
That's a great segue into probably one of the last things I wanted to talk to you about then, which is like just the current events, this time of turmoil. It is definitely a turning point, some kind of awakening. It seems to be happening. There's the great reset happening that the globalists like Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum want us to own nothing and eat bugs and be happy, you know. And then there's us. I feel like on the other side, humanity, people who still believe in the natural human that doesn't need to be augmented by AI and cyborgs, and who believe that we can ascend without them and without all that augmentation and unnatural disharmonious BS, you know, to actually just kind of do this the right way.
Mm.
And I feel like, yeah, there's these two competing worldviews right now, and we really are like we're like colliding right now, and it's this moment where like one of these realities is going to exist. One of these paths forward will manifest. And
Mhm.
so do we want to see the you know, these corporate elite and their vision of the world take off, or do we want to create a vision of the world for ourselves? And I choose the latter. I know you choose the latter, but what do you think about like just, yeah, what's going on with the current events? Like, especially right now, we've got like the whole thing going on in Gaza, you
Yeah.
know, with Israel versus Palestine, and like there's so much anger and hate and suffering. And do you have anything to speak to on that, and like how you feel about that situation?
Yeah, it's challenging because it's twofold, you know. I mean, we are both human and divine, so God force and living in this physical reality. And I think that, I mean, I was just working with a coaching client yesterday who was really, you know, disturbed and upset, and she let me know. She's like, I used to not connect to this kind of stuff. I didn't really care, but in the process of me guiding her as a spiritual coach, her heart is beginning to open, and she feels this connection to this pain. And I was
Yeah.
also, I just was serving a retreat in Washington State, and we were listening to Ram Dass, and Ram Dass was doing a lecture about really just this topic of this process of being so pained by the suffering of humanity, by, you know, children being raped and sodomized, and, you know, people getting, you know, murdered, and the famine and the just destruction, the wars, and all of this evil. And he's like
Right.
talking to his guru, and he's saying, you know, like, how can this, you know, like, how can this happen? And his guru is looking at him with total love and compassion. And he said, it's all perfect. And he's like, but what about this? And what about this? And he just continues to open his heart. And he said, it's all perfect. And I think that, you know, in reflection of that, it's really, and I know this is probably pissing a lot of people off hearing that are listening to this. And I think at some level it does, especially when we're personally experiencing some of this, you know, chaos and pain, but we're also looking at it from a very narrow, like minded perspective, you know, as humans. And as what we talked about too, in this physical realm, you know, it's less than 1% of the energy that exists. So we're looking at these perspectives from a very human, very limited perspective. We have no clue from an astral perspective, from the vantage point of the divine,
Mm-hmm.
what those souls' journeys were called to. There is a perfection in the balance of life. And I can't claim to say I know why this is happening, or to fully say, yeah, it's all perfect. There is a deep soul trust in the unfolding of what's happening. But I'm human too, and my heart pains, you know. I mean, I don't watch the news very much because I'm already so connected to the emotions and the energies of the people that I'm guiding and supporting in their personal liberation, that sometimes it's a little much to be super connected to the macrocosm of what's happening. But
Yeah.
I believe that there is a perfection if we look at life, if we look at the process of creation, we look at the Big Bang, I mean, absolute chaos, fractaling out of all this just crazy, wild energy that's just going, 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 and eventually solidifies and settles into perfect order. And so we don't have to will the sun to come up or pray for it to go down. We don't you know, there is this trust in the unfolding of these cycles of life. And so it is challenging, no doubt. You know, I mean, my heart pained so much when all this stuff was happening in Hawaii. And I mean, there's just so
Oh
many
God, yeah, that too.
cataclysmic events that are happening where it's like,
Yeah.
Our Earth
Like
is
I
a
can't even keep up with all this stuff,
that's
you know. Like yeah, one last month or so it was
yeah,
Hawaii.
yeah,
Then now it's this. Of course, we had the Ukraine.
yeah.
Now because of the Gaza, you know, turmoil. Now we're talking about war with Iran. It's just like, oh my God, World War III looks like it's
Right.
creeping around the corner.
I mean, in my perspective, it's already happening. It's already been
Yeah,
happening. It's
yeah,
war of consciousness. And so it is, what we perceive and what we're seeing in our external environment, it has to, I mean, I say people have to, those that have the courage to begin to say, what is happening in here within me that is participating, contributing to what's happening out there. It is
hmm
when we lay down the weapons within ourselves, that we learn to open our hearts in the midst of some of these chaotic situations, that I think we become closer in trusting the divine. I mean, it's, again, these things are hard to articulate or to put words to. I mean, I have, in some of the experiences that I've had in my life, some horrific traumas that I wouldn't wish anybody to have or experience. I can look at them today from this astral view, this higher perspective, and see that at some that the participants, the person that was interacting, or whatever trauma was occurring, had to dip into such a low level of consciousness to forget the truth of who they are so deeply that they could do such a heinous act, which inevitably catapulted me into expansion. So sometimes we can't see these things as they're happening. We're clouded by emotion, but we also can't see the fast forward, how is this playing out?
right.
And I can't claim, and I will not claim to know the purpose of some of these events, but I do think it's a wake up call of this, um, that the way that we've been doing things, the way that we've been treating ourselves, treating others, systems that we've had in place to um, just cycle through life are no longer serving. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, they seem to be crumbling.
yeah. And
Yeah,
so I think in this process of destruction, there is an emerging of a level of consciousness where people are beginning to become more attuned and more sensitive to their brother and sister, more sensitive to their aware of their actions and how it's affecting their environment, how it's affecting other people. I think that this is the choice that we are met with:
yeah.
service to self or service to others. And the service to self, meaning like the selfish, like hoarding and all for me, like not understanding that the interconnectedness of all of life. And so
Right.
because of the line of work that I do in guiding people in these transformational journeys, may it be with medicine or as a coach, um I'm witnessing on a continuous basis the service to self and the expansion of this beauty of consciousness, where people are coming together, where they're more concerned about the impact that they're leaving in their personal relationships, in their homes, and their jobs, and their communities. And there's a drive to want to give more
Oh
love.
no.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, you're back. It skipped for a second and I thought I lost
Oh, okay. Uh,
you.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, because it's like, as this chaos and destruction is building, I'm observing these hearts open, and this compassionate, like, people just falling in love with life and trusting in their gifts and trusting in the unknown more. So it's like, it's this interesting, like, yin and yang. It's this like kind of balancing act that's
Really is.
it's really fascinating. But
Yeah, it seems like yeah, there's like growth in both directions. It's getting like things are getting kind of a little more extreme.
yeah,
Yeah, you have like some extreme evil and bad, but then at the same time, yeah, there's this awakening happening.
yes.
There's like the great reset and then there's like the great awakening. I feel like people have been talking about in the spiritual community as well, is like we all kind of feel like that shift is coming and the world certainly seems to be reflecting it. So I mean, that's there's your physical evidence right there, right? If you need it. But yeah, there's certainly a mental shift that's going on as well. I mean, we are, you know, as human beings, it is a collective, whether we act collectively more or less or not. Um, we are all feeding off each other, and the things are shifting, and we can all feel it. And you can certainly feel a pull towards fear right now. That is certainly the major push, because that's how governments function, right? If nobody's afraid of anything, what good is there a government, right? They're only in business as long as we're in fear.
Exactly.
So yeah, they're doing a really good job of creating fear on in every aspect of life, be it like just buying groceries, you know, the instability of the market, to you know, safety, right? We have like that weird little drill that came on everybody's phone like a week or so ago, and you know, it's like they're kind of priming for the worst.
Mm.
And it's good to be prepared. But yeah, certainly we can use this as a time for growth. You know, what you said right there was pretty much, in your own words, what I was going to say, which is pretty much that in these times of great turmoil, often is a opportunity for innovation and recreation. You could even look at like when America started, you know, that was actually a very tumultuous time, right? And we even fought the British crown, and you know, that it wasn't an easygoing time though, right? And the founding fathers, they put their lives on the line, they put everything on the line. These people were like in their 30s too,
Yeah.
mind you. So it's like this it's just amazing what those people did back then. When you really look at like the lives of our founding fathers and Thomas Jefferson and not Abe, Benjamin Franklin, you know, and what just the amazing stuff that those people were going through. Like they were going through such hard times that they managed to be so inspired to create a country that defined itself on individual sovereignty and freedom, the first of its kind, you know, in human history that we're aware of. And it led to so much innovation and so much beautiful creation and prosperity, and then taking that model and using it as a template for constitutions that were erected all around the world, and lifted more people out of poverty than any other uh, political system that we know of. So there was a lot of good that came out of such a tumultuous time, such bloodshed, you know, in the um, you know, American independence. So you can look at those kind of times that, yeah, just a lot of times when things are shifting and there's a lot of bloodshed and fear, just know that those are opportunities, right? For people, for the next Benjamin Franklin or whatever, right?
Yes.
For people to rise up and utilize their mental faculties and all of their physical abilities to do something great, to create things. You know, and again, he's such a great example because he was like an inventor, he was a politician, he knew about farming, he
Yeah.
was a writer. He was like a Renaissance man. He was like a almost modern day Renaissance man. And those are the kind of people that inspire me the most, you know, like Leonardo da Vinci and those kind of people who are just multifaceted, seem like they had that holistic understanding of the universe, right? That is required for ascension, in my opinion. You have to have a holistic understanding. You can't just be in one narrow tunnel. You really need to be able to see how science and art and all these things interconnect, and spirituality and science and math and all those things, like that. That's how the universe works. It's not all divided up, everything is connected, like you say. So having a rounded understanding of all these things, a well-rounded understanding of spirituality and science and all these things, I think that's the path forward. And having unwavering skepticism and scrutiny as well.
Mm.
That has served me very well in sussing the bullshit over the last 3 years, with like the COVID thing, especially, and just being brave too. I think that's a hard part for a lot of us. It's still hard for me, even though I'll put myself through things. Like when I take some of those slings and arrows, like I did in 2020, when I kind of started speaking out and being like, hey, look, the death rate's actually not so bad. I thought everybody would celebrate, and instead they came down on me with hate. That was mind blowing to me. I was like, I thought this was a good thing that lots of people aren't dying. People were mad at me for pointing out that not a lot of people were dying.
Yeah, because it
And
challenges their belief system and their belief system around the nature of reality. I think that is the most scariest thing for people, which is why I respect everyone's process. Plant medicine, animal medicine is not for everyone, because it absolutely will shatter in a beautiful way your perception. I mean, because most people buy into, this is all there is. Three
yeah,
is the ultimate. That's it. And it's like, man, there is so much more that's going on. And so I understand. I too, took a lot of what do you say, bullets or whatever during COVID. I because I saw through it as well. And it was,
okay. So I didn't know that you had gone through that as well.
oh, dude, yeah. I mean, I didn't wear a mask, and I had people, like saying something like, I'm not buying into, I'm not going to succumb to the fear. Like, I
Right.
trust my body. I trust the intelligence that is God force that breathes body. The body has the capacity to heal, but
Yeah.
I mean, marginal. I mean, it was painful. I went through some really deep.
It was. Well, I mean, I know what you mean, because I went through it too. Yeah. And it's hard when you have like friends and family who are like ousting you for this kind of stuff, especially when you know that the science is actually on your side, when you actually looked into it deeper and know that that those masks are actually festering bacteria playgrounds that you're
Yeah,
creating on your face, which is a perfect playground for COVID
totally.
to fester, So, and yeah, and just the usage of them, touching them. There's so many reasons why that was not necessary and not good. And even during the year of 2020, I was adamantly keeping notes of things. I have like a file of like all these news things when they came out, so I can confirm this.
That's so cool
Um,
that you saved all that. That's so awesome.
Yeah, yeah, because I knew I would be challenged, and I
Yeah.
knew I wanted, and I wanted to keep all my facts together.
Mm,
And there's literally a video of somebody, of one of the people of the World Health Organization, saying um basically that masks don't need to be used in the way that they're being used. They're basically like, oh, well, this was the main point that they were making. They said that asymptomatic spread is basically not a thing. They were
mm,
saying that if you're not like sick, where you feel sick and you're like hacking stuff up, if you are asymptomatic, basically like you're just going about your business completely fine, like you and I right now. But if you were to be tested, supposedly you have COVID inside you, you really can't spread the virus. That's what the WHO came out and said that in 2020. They're like, unless you're hacking up viral loads, that's really the only way you're going to spread it. So unless you're coughing a lot, or coughing in general, right? Unless you're coughing and spitting this stuff up all over the place, you're not going to spread it. So why did everyone need to wear a mask? The only people who needed to wear a mask maybe were the people who were symptomatic. If you have COVID and you're coughing and shit, then yeah, maybe you should put on a mask. But other than that, forcing the whole entire rest of society to wear a mask when asymptomatic spread was already debunked by the World Health Organization, like there was just so many little like guideposts that that we just blasted past, where it was like, hey, wait a minute, what about the science? The science just said this is okay. Nobody cares. Keep moving on. Everyone mask up.
yeah.
Uh, you know, there was just so many things like that. Or like when they were saying social distancing, masking, all this stuff, all these events are shut down. Oh, but BLM can riot, and none of them have to wear masks. And actually, the COVID just kind of chilled out for all the BLM riots. Like that's definitely one of those flashpoints for me where I was like, okay, y'all guys are full of shit,
Yeah.
you know? Like,
Yeah.
and everybody should have been able to see that too. Like that doesn't take a scientist. That just takes natural logic to look at that and be like, okay, so the virus is only bad when it's not BLM riots, but when it's BLM riots, it's okay for everyone to crowd together and also break like billions of dollars of people's private property in the process. That's okay. Yeah, no, I just have such, I'm blown away that people don't see that. And it's like, it's like a Stockholm syndrome kind of thing. It's like they don't want to admit that they've been duped at this point too. That's the main thing I feel like after so many of those guideposts come and gone, and now we're, you know, years into this later, um, and we have some pretty good stats proving on jab injuries and things like that. You know, the stats of the deaths didn't even roll in until the next year when the jab rolled out. So there's a lot of perfectly sound evidence. You could even, I mean, you could look at what coroners say. Coroners finding weird clots in people's bodies that they'd never seen previous to 2021. Also, insurance companies, you know, they all started, everyone's insurance went up after 2021, not 2020. So
Right.
like there's so many of these like, if you're just open to looking at science, you know, stats and being scientific about it, you know, being scientific doesn't mean following whatever Anthony Fauci says.
Yeah.
That's propaganda,
No
you know,
doubt.
and so many people fell for it. And he said, you know, if you question me, you're questioning the science. It's like, dude, you're not the embodiment of science. Like, shut up. You know, so I could go on and for hours about that myself, but um it's just interesting to me, and I'm so happy to hear that actually, because I didn't know how you felt about most of it. I had a feeling since you took the pretzel at the
Yeah.
dough deck that we were on the right same page there, but it's just weird to me because I got ousted by most of the Houston art community. Like a lot of the people in the art realm, I don't know if you're aware, but they're all very leftist. They're all very
Yeah.
liberal or progressive, whatever you want to call it. And well, they just don't think, and they just follow marching orders. And it's really sad to see that an entire industry, let alone a community, can be ruled by a political movement like that, one that's so detrimental to us as well. Um, well, because I mean, as artists, we only appeal, art's only good when people have money, you know?
Yeah.
And so we need a nice, thriving capitalist society for art to thrive,
Mhm.
you know? If we don't have lots of people with lots of money, we don't sell art. And
Right.
so, so you can't just have the economy get shut down on a whim like that and keep going that way. And you can't stampede on people's personal freedoms and expect everything to be all good. But no, I got rampaged by these people, and I even remember one of them, one of them who I thought was a friend of mine, who I liked, until they came down on me. And I went and looked at his page after they'd all like came down on me, and I saw him, just kind of like the whole like shit talking behind your back thing. And they were just like, man, I can't believe Vincent's like, doesn't believe the news or something. I don't know what they were saying, that he's not on our side about this COVID thing, because he posted that the deaths weren't so high. And then one of them was just like, yeah, man, really lame of him, for somebody to be all into sacred geometry and stuff like that. Like, why doesn't he get it? And I just thought that was like the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. I was like, dude, you know nothing about sacred geometry and what it means. You know nothing about spirituality and harmony and vibration. If you knew anything about that, you would understand that's actually why I believe the way I do, because I believe in you know harmony and fear. I know that fear is a low vibration thing that will actually make you sicker. So all these people who are in fear, living in their home, staying inside, like they were much like they were multiplying their chances of getting
Totally.
sick. you
Absolutely.
know
Yeah.
and the thing to do was to get out in the sun and have fun
Mhm.
and stop worrying about it. And but yeah, sacred geometry, it relates to, again, like harmony and balance and things like that. And most people who are in the spiritual community, this whole idea is that, well, hey, you can actually make yourself better with your mind, like we've been talking about this whole time right here. It's like the mind can actually control the body doesn't have to be in control all the time.
Right.
And like you said, people have even experienced healing through practicing this stuff.
Mhm.
So with all that in mind, if you're in the spiritual community and you're into sacred geometry and all this stuff, like how can you have all that knowledge and then be like, oh, but COVID's coming to kill us all, we all better run and hide? You know, like it just, the two don't comport.
I
They do, yeah, they have nothing to do with each other. They are diametrically opposed opposites. Like that's not me at all, actually. And anybody who takes spirituality and all this stuff seriously, I don't see how you could have been fooled into that narrative. You know, so it just blew my mind that somebody would, it just kind of showed their ignorance to me. It was like, okay, you actually, you obviously know nothing about sacred geometry or any of this stuff.
yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I went through a moment, or some time, not a moment. There was a lot of anger, and I'm from the get-go, from March 15th when I'm watching on YouTube Trump and Fauci, and I was like, I literally saw through it, and I was just like, I'm not falling for this. And then I
Mhm.
became enraged because I felt so much, again, compassion for humanity. I'm like, how could you do this? Like, how could you put all these people to sleep? And then I came to the point, and then I would respond in this place of anger. And I was shown that it's like, this is the same energy that created this stuff. I mean, yes, you may have a point, and this and yet I can't show up in this way. So
Yeah.
my teaching was to soften my heart and to be the living example, to know that I don't need to have everyone's approval or to jump on board with what I see. It was such a powerful journey of, I know this resonates as truth for me, and that is enough. And so holding that frequency, as you know, creates, there's a field around our body. And so then we attract people that are in that same frequency, and
Yeah.
this is the community that I'm talking about, right? Those that, so then there's this bond that, it was like so fun to go into the grocery store and to find that one other person that wasn't wearing a mask. And it's so,
Right.
okay. Um, but and not but and also to give people their quiet time if they want to be asleep and they want to stay asleep, to honor that, because it's not up to me, and I don't know that soul is ready to see the truth. I think a lot of people, there's that fear. It's like, oh, if I open up this, if I'm open to this perception or to this person's experience about what is going on, then it could destroy everything about how they've built their life from that point forward. And most people aren't willing to do that,
Yeah.
and at some level, it's like, it's, again, here we go, the matrix. It's like, give them their journey in the falsehood, and to enjoy that. I mean, at some level, we all have to pay the piper, at the end of the day. And so I don't know what that means for anyone, but what I gained from that whole experience is just such a deep love for trusting myself, for
Yeah.
not succumbing to fear. Just like, no, I mean, because people were, how are you going to travel? They were going to do the vax
Yeah.
mandates to get on a plane. I was like, I trust God, and I trust that there's a way, and it's like, never had to do any of that. Right. And I'm still
Right.
doing all the things. And so it was,
God, and imagine how many of those people who didn't want that jab and
oh,
they took it because
yeah,
their job was forcing
yeah,
them or because they needed to travel.
yeah.
And I get, they're regretting it.
Yeah, and it's like, there's so much compassion that I have for people in that space,
Me
like,
too.
and so it's just like I begin to just see them.
And I guess that's who I want to try to appeal to sometimes, though, when I do talk about this stuff, is because I don't want us to, they're going to try it again. All right.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and so we just need to be ready. And I don't want things to get as insane or more insane than it got last time, which that's what they're going to push for. They're going to push for a scarier
yeah,
variant or something. And they're going to push to scare everyone even further into submission, into tyranny, into losing all of our rights and just our way of life. And I totally get, you're right. I mean, some people are never going to wake up or just not on our time, but I do think it's important to talk about it. And I guess that's why I am doing so right now, because I think in a calm way, though, and that's the key, like you said too, is to not respond in anger, but with love. And
yeah,
so that's kind of why I like to bring this up every so often, because it's out of love. It's like, hey, here's another wake up call. Like, if you didn't realize it yet, you were duped,
yeah,
and you need to wake up, because you are probably duping others. And the sooner you wake up, the sooner you can wake up others. And then there's the chain reaction of everybody awakening to the truth and
mm,
coming out of fear, getting away from all the fear and the evil that is trying to drag us down into fear, into tyranny. And so, yeah, just embracing personal sovereignty. Again, this is one of those things that's a very kind of a tenet of the whole like metaphysical spiritual world, is like, hey, I am sovereign in my own body and I can make choices for my own body, and it's okay if I do or don't whatever I do, whatever, it's just, it's okay, leave me alone, my body, my choice, right?
Yes.
And especially when y'all guys are wrong about everything, because they were wrong about everything that they said came out to be false. And so, yeah, I'm glad that I kind of had that test of my discernment too, and I'm glad I came to find that I was correct. So now I know to trust myself, like you're saying yourself too. It's like it's like building a good habit. Now you're a little bit more affirmed in your ability to suss things out and to make the right decision, and you'll do better in the future than those who don't exercise that kind of discernment.
Yes.
So yeah, I just hope that we can, in a nice way, inform people and get them to say no this next time, to be a little more forceful and to not comply so much, because there was so many people who were against this crap in every way, yet they would submit. And that just creates, again, that's another chain reaction in the wrong direction though. And all it takes is a few brave people to stand up, and bravery is contagious.
Yeah.
Courage is contagious. I've noticed that because I was a little silent about things until I saw a fellow artist speak out, and I was like, holy shit, I can't believe she just came out and said what I'm thinking, because I know she's about to get a shit ton of heat. And of course, she just got ravaged by the comment section. But that's also what, and it kind of inspired me. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to speak my truth too. And then I got ravaged in the comment section, and I lost some friends and associates. And well, you know what? This is the thing about hard times in general, like we're talking about again with all these current events. You learn who's real and who's not. You will learn who's actually your friend and who's not. And I learned over the last couple of years that a lot of those people that I thought were my friends really weren't. And that's okay, because I have real friends still. They proved they weren't, but there was a lot of other people who proved they are my friend, that they do love me, even if they disagree with me, that they'll still be my friend. They'll still be by my side. And that's what a real friendship is. I don't really value the fake friendship that I thought I had with these other people anyway. So that's the way to go forward, is to just, stay in peace, stay in love, but speak your truth, and not being afraid, because we need more truth tellers. That's the only way we become more enlightened as a species, is by sharing, and that's the whole point of this. I think this is why we're doing this right now, is to share these ideas and to get more of that out there, and hopefully wake a few people up, to one thing or another, to the fact that you don't need to wear a mask, or maybe it's the fact that, hey, there's hidden potential in your dreams, or maybe there's aliens that you can interface with if you try, and there's ways to unlock that stuff as well with some of these plant medicines that I'm still contemplating.
Yeah, but, just come join us in ceremony and just observe. I mean, there's people that come and don't receive, and simply in being in the presence of these processes and witnessing another person's, ego death and rebirth in the same life is so moving, that it heals people just in observation. So you're always welcome. I'll send since 11/11, so I'll send you the details for
excellent. We're definitely gonna have to do that. I'm definitely want to get in there and see it for myself and experience it, because I am a very empathetic person, I've come to find. And so I do pick up on other people's energies and things very easily. So being in a situation like that, I imagine it'd probably be a pretty good thing, because I'm imagining that the vibes are probably fairly high flying. But that's how it is though. I've been picking up on a lot of the energy lately too, and it's disrupted me a bit. So I think it's a good thing that we got to talk here today, because I feel your energy through the screen here, and it's very like calming and warming and comforting. And I think we all need some of that right now because, again, just with Palestine and Israel, the Ukraine and Russia, now again the talking about war with Iran, all these things. Oh, we got way more problems right here at home, thanks to the current admin. So we have all kinds of reasons where I just feel like I'm waking up and I'm absorbing people's energy too. Like it, I think that's also a thing that I have to fight. I have to build my energy up because I literally feel like I'm fighting sometimes the energy of the world, and it's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to be kind of empathic and to be. I don't want to feel these things, and I try to cut myself off, and I still do, and it's annoying. Like for instance, my wife's father died, and we went to his funeral. I tried so hard to be disconnected from the pain that was in that room. I did everything in my power. I just like kind of take myself to another place. So when I'd start feeling the emotions rolling up, and I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to cry. I'm just going to think about something else. And I try to think about baseball, try to think about art, anything. Right. And no matter what, it was so like unbearable, like to try to ignore that. It didn't matter where I put my mind, my body and everything just felt it. And I was like fighting tears, So I feel like I'm often in those kind of situations where I can tell I'm like, man, I kind of don't like being empathic because it feels like I don't have control of my own energy. Like I'm in a room with people crying and then it makes me want to cry, like what the hell?
Yeah.
I want to lift them up.
Yeah, it's a process. I mean, that's what makes you such an incredible artist. I think, if you do not have that sensitivity, how could you create the beauty that you create, And I relate, and I think it's just a practice. I mean, in the beginning of me guiding people in these journeys, I would, or assisting the shamans and processes, I would feel everything that they're feeling, and I would just be crying. Like their process became my process, and so there's just just through practicing my heart is still open. There's still compassion. There's still, and of course there are moments that I still, tears fall from my face when I'm in, guiding people. It's just so profound. But for the most part, I've learned to not merge with somebody else, with the other person's pain. But it's just awareness. And I think it's beautiful. I mean, yeah. And there are times where just the emotion is so powerful that it just moves you. And so I understand sometimes, the gift of sensitivity can feel like a curse, but I think in the greater view, and the greater perspective, that it offers a tremendous amount of gifts. I mean, no artist, I don't know any artist that doesn't have a sensitivity to energies or to emotions. It's that a capacity to connect to that illustrates the expression in which you create from. And so it's beautiful.
Well, thank you. It's tough, but I'll try and do my best with it. So you say though, for you, it's been you just over time you kind of get better at managing that, or do you
Yeah.
do you, do you try to do that? Do you try to like kind of take yourself away, take yourself to another place so you don't wind up bawling over this person, or do you just kind of let it flow through you?
It kind of
What
just
has worked
moves.
for you?
Yeah, I feel that it moves through me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe resisting it's just not even the way to do it. Yeah.
That will just create, like,
More
more
friction.
stuck energies in your bodies. Yeah, in your
Yeah.
body. But I think the medicine that I work with too, I receive a small amount in the process of guiding someone that, suppresses the frontal lobe. There's the personality, it's like there's no room for that when I'm doing this work. It is all of my attention, all of my energy is in the person that's on the mat that I'm serving. And so, yeah, there are moments where Stephanie comes in, or like maybe a thought, a fear, maybe from them or from whatever in the environment. And then it's nope, back to center, focus, focus, focus. And so generally, once I complete, there are times where I go home and I just sob, in sadness for the process or for the person, or in joy and elation for being able to witness such profound transformation, my emotions, my sensitivity is still on. I think that there's just kind of this, like you said, maybe discipline or learning how to kind of hone the energy in that process, so that I make sure that it's their journey, it's their process. I'm facilitating, I'm holding the space, I'm holding the container. But I think, in situations that it's highly appropriate to allow myself to fall into the emotion,
Mm-hmm.
of compassion, of sadness, in a room where there's a funeral, occurring. Yeah, it would be really almost, I would say, borderline abusive to myself to not allow myself to feel that. And crying is such a beautiful form of release, of healing, of flowing. I mean, the tears that fall from our eyes, I think it's like the highest amount of like toxicity that is encoded or encased in the water in our bodies come out through tears. So it's a profound healing process.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's why it feels so good. I mean, that release feels so liberating. And so there's so much judgment around tears. And as a highly sensitive being, I mean, I cry all the time, for joy, for sadness, for fear. It expresses in this way for me. And so learning to also have compassion for myself, because there's so much. I mean, you hear all the time kids growing up, "What are you doing crying? Shut up and stop crying." It's like this suppression of this. I mean, it's this biological release of stored energy that wants to be released. But yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does. Man, so much there that we could unpack. I think we'll just have to save it for another episode or something, because I think we've been talking for like over 2 hours now.
We're coming up on 3. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Awesome.
All right. This is long enough. We definitely have plenty to talk about. That much is clear. And so perhaps we can do this again sometime. But I thoroughly enjoyed this, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and just sharing your wisdom, your learnings, and just your light with the audience.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast, and for the beautiful conversation with so much rich information.
Holy cow.
Oh, it says internet connections.
Okay, I think
the internet
that means the show's over.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Alrighty, cool. Thanks for watching today's video. If you enjoyed, please hit like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Also, if you want to support me as a content creator, as an artist, as a creator of culture, what art has always been throughout history, then if you think my voice has value, if you value free-thinking artists who push themselves to the limits, then please head on to patreon.com/VincentFink. You can start at the price of a cup of coffee per month and will far exceed the monetary value of your investment with art gifts. So please check it out, and thank you very much for watching today, and we'll see you in the next vid.